I'm Clint, and welcome to Swatches Livestream number 37. I am illustrator Clint Cearley. Welcome to the channel and welcome to the livestream. In this episode, we're going to be looking at the finals of the Calypso Art Challenge. We have 30 entries from you, the viewers, who are joining us. You have all had 2 weeks to create this challenge. Last week we looked at the preliminaries, that is the sketches and the concepts that you submitted. We had some mid-challenge reviews on those, and then we'll move on to looking at the finals today. Let me switch the screen here. Here you can see the breakdown of what the challenge is, if you're unfamiliar with what's going on. This is a fictional challenge. I just made up what would be considered a fictional art commission for a game, kind of giving everybody an idea of what it's like to work as an illustrator. And I am looking at this one particularly through the view of a art director. Also as an art teacher, but I'm trying to give everybody an idea of what to sort of expect if you are working in the field. The sort of parameters that you would have and what would be asked of you and some of the things like working on a deadline. Alright, we've got a couple of people in. Milos, Michael, Solardi, Surmont, Igor, Cyber, how's it going, everybody? Doing well over here. Thanks. Yeah, so good response this time. We have 30 entries, which is awesome. Thank you for everyone who has joined us on this particular challenge. And we also are taking live questions from the chat. So if you are joining us live, feel free to put your questions and comments out here in the chat. Also, please remember to put @Swatches at the beginning of your comment, so it will flag that for me to know that it is directed at me. Otherwise, I don't get to read all of the live chat. I just kind of glance over there to see if I see a tag from me or not. Yeah, all right. If the audio is good, please let me know. I know we've had a little problem with that in the past. If you're watching this in recording, just know that we'll leave a minute or two here for people to kind of filter in before we really get started on the reviews. Get a little sip of water before we get going. Also, if you're new to the stream, please know that my stream is not completely smooth on my side. So if you're getting some glitches, some drop frames, it is most likely from my end. Unfortunately, with the internet options out here, that is the best that I can do. Please just bear with me on that. But let's give a quick rundown of what the challenge was so you know what the parameters are that everybody was trying to fill out. It is for Swatches, just the channel. We have an ongoing fictional game called Spireville. It is for a non-playable character. I am the art director. There's no fees for this. Either way, her name is Calypso the Wanderer. So, while pilfering the ruins of the Saurian crypts, Dagon and Daphne Stormbrew. Maybe do it like this. I'm met by a strange woman named Calypso the Wanderer and her animal companion. Calypso's age is difficult to determine, giving an impression of great age that her appearance doesn't entirely reflect. She is very connected with nature, having a look of a shaman, oracle, or druidess. She is chaotic neutral, neither friend nor foe, but can be either, depending on how she's treated. Alright, so Calypso is a human base, possibly as far as being a satyr, but she has animal legs. It could be various kinds of animal legs. I did draw the line at snake body, though. That kind of goes off into the side of it being a naga. She has a ram motif. That is, there needs to be the imagery of a ram, something about her look. She is human, satyr, or fae. And it is in the genre of fantasy, myth, or fable. And sort of Middle Ages time period. She is female. Okay, with that being established, I think we have a good group of people in here now. We'll go and pull this out of the way and start going through these. Also, let's go ahead and touch on this right at the beginning. I did announce earlier this week that the art challenges going forwards are going to be for patrons only. They will be for any patron that is at the $10 level or higher. Now, they will still be live streamed just like we have here. Anybody is welcome to join in and watch and also comment, but only the patrons will be allowed to enter the contest and have their images reviewed. There has definitely been some mixed emotions from you guys about that decision, and there was some accurate comments saying that this will affect the group because it is one of the things that's really brought people to the channel and made people part of the community, and removing that chance from them will make a difference. Absolutely. I think it is one of the things that has definitely helped build an actual community out of the channel and not just being a channel that people come watch some stuff on. However, I think of it like having a gym. All right, there's a gym down the road, and I'm a personal trainer. All right, now it's fine. Sometimes personal trainers, they'll hold what you might call a boot camp. You know, they have a free weekend where people can come in. They run them through some drills, and then they just get some quick, off the cuff feedback for their health and fitness, and that's cool, and it helps people get aware of the gym. But the gym can't survive if all they run is boot camps, and that's really what I have going on right now on the channel. The channel bit doesn't begin to offset the time that I put into it, or put into the group, and just comments and responding to everybody. So what I'm trying to do is get the channel to kind of cover itself, really. And all I'm saying is, hey, if you want personal training, have a gym membership. That's the way it works. Does that mean I will never have any more open contests or ways to work with you guys? Absolutely not. I do plan on doing that in the future. But as a rule going forward, gotta have a gym membership. That's your Patreon account. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. Oh, one other comment on that. I know that hard times financially happen. I've had times where finances were in a bind, unexpected things happen, you lose your job, your car breaks, you don't have money to spend, all right? Now, $10 isn't that much, but I know sometimes $10 means you get to eat that day or you don't. So if you don't have the $10, I understand, but just make sure that you're not deluding yourself. If this matters to you, and all the difference is you having to hustle a little bit more to make $10 within a month, then that's on you, okay? $10 is not that hard to make in the span of a month. That's just clean a house, mow a lawn, put in an extra hour or two. It's not that big a deal. Remember, do not look back on this and say, well, my art career didn't, work out because that Clint Cearley, he started charging $10 whole for feedback. No, bud. That's on you. All right, I've got to look out for me too. I've got to pay my bills and cover my time. But remember, if this is important to you, if you honestly feel like you get good feedback from the channel and you like what I'm doing, I'd love you to join the studio. Okay. So we're just going alphabetically with these. Let me go ahead and pull OBS out of the way for a moment. Pull this over. Okay, Ahmed. What we got here? Ahmed, I like this. Off the top, it's good. I like even going with the purple color scheme on the skin. The initial read is nice. You do develop the background a bit more than I asked for. I asked for a basic tone. A flat tone. You give me a little more than that. So depending on the art director, they might call you on that. And remember, that's what I'm trying to do. What would the art director tell you? Or what might they call you on? Or what might they ask for? I'm more focusing on that on this particular challenge. Awa Movies asks, when will $40 patrons be able to send out the paintings to you? November, or will it be moved to December? Good question. The $40 patrons right now over on Patreon get to submit a image, and I will record about a 30-minute personal in-depth feedback on that particular piece. And that will be whenever after the next rewards get released. So that means whenever the next rewards will be in about 2 weeks, then I will let you know in that message that now is a good time that you can submit it, and I will give you the outline as to where to submit it and what information to send and those sorts of things. Good question. Yep. Okay, so on this one, the character's drifting into background just a bit too much. I would suggest either really dropping that far darker or significantly lightening it. Right now it's just within a very similar value range. You see how those value ranges sort of blend together, especially there on the bird. Now, I do like the lighting on this. It works well to help make the character pop without having to throw light across the entire character. One thing that doesn't sit quite right is the color scheme. I would love to see a bit more color tie between the character and the animal. Just visually, games often do that, where in actuality, that doesn't happen so much. So if you could take a color cue off of the character and either make the bird into that character or at least give some highlights, like if the longest feathers, like the feathers faded into the purple tone or to the green tone or even to this silvery blue tone, like on the tips of the feathers. Something like that would help tie them together a bit more. Otherwise, it's a clean rendering. If I was the art director, I'd probably ask for a little more work on this green. I'm taking that this is fabric. The fabric doesn't fold like that. So I would ask that to be revised as to what I'm actually looking at. Or is it leather? If it's leather, it needs to be handled a little bit different. But good shapes, good forms. I like the poses straightforward without being too much. It's just a simple hand gesture. The bird is a nice semi-active pose. And the tail is also a nice addition. I like that. Alessandra. Okay, let's open you up. Oh yes, I remember your sketch. Okay. You just went through, continued working on that, filling it out. Good flat tone on the background. Kept it within the nice warm earth tones. Okay, you developed the horn a little bit more. I like that. I was a little unsure about that to begin with, what I was looking at there, but that makes more sense. The bird. I'm just wondering about having a bit more pop. It just doesn't. It feels like the whole thing might just be like a little too light or too desaturated. Let me pull up this folder over here, and I put together a folder for mainly my own reference for Dungeons and Dragons like images, generally characters over flat backgrounds. And a couple of things I want to note on these is styles always open, like this very line-based style. This is more of your Asian, something more popular sort of Asian style, semi-realistic, more painterly style, very nice. This one also, you see how much warm tones and mid-tones that it uses. It doesn't get blown out in the lights, doesn't get too dark in the darks, but the base colors of everything work really well to make the character stand out without being over the top. It doesn't have to be highly detailed or realistic like you see here. This is very stylized, good shapes, good tones of the individual pieces against each other. And you can also go very realistic, like this image, right? Very nice piece there. Of course, I got to throw in, like, you know, this is one I did for D&D of a character in one of the newest books. Combustion Knight did the same sort of thing. But you see how all of these, the character has a nice presence to them. Stands out well. We don't quite have that on this. So I'm wondering if like getting this gray fabric and dropping its value down even more, so it's much closer to black, getting some of the things that are kind of dark and really pushing them a bit more. Otherwise, your design is, I'm pretty happy with the design. I think it fulfills the idea of this wandering kind of seer oracle, and it fits in the medieval time period. We obviously have the animal pet. I get that this is somebody that is out in the rough a lot. Something else you could consider is doing, let's see if there's somebody here that does it. Like this one kind of does. It's like lighter at the top and it gets distinctly more shadowed as it goes down. It's a fairly common thing to do. Like this one, and it gets darker as it goes down. You could consider doing that as well over here. It's a simple thing to do. Let's try doing that actually. What I'll do is create a new layer and do a multiply. Which way is it going to go? That way. Just curious. Yeah. Creating a mask over that. I can't remember if that's on the within the scope of the screen or not, but I'll throw a mask over there, invert that. Obviously, I'm doing this very roughly, but you can just do that. And I am getting some lag with the OBS and all the cameras running. So I'll be a little bit sloppy on there. Now this is something that you don't necessarily have to do early on. It might be a layer that you turn on and off to see whether you like that adjustment or not. And then you can incorporate it later if you wanted to. So I'm going to unlink that so that I don't need it going that far up the character. See, that pushes that a bit further. And we can also use the burn tool and just drop down some of the shadows here. What we want to do is so that if it was to be used in a game, that it wouldn't look washed out in the player book or on a card. We want to make sure that those values pop. So we're just going to deepen some of the midtones a bit more, and you can see the difference there. That sort of direction. That would be one of the only things that I would look at artistically. I would also consider adding like a bit of that fabric on the back hanging down. Assumably that's being tied off, and there might be a little bit, kind of a little shawl hanging behind her. I think that would be fitting for this character, and it would give a bit of motion. Right now there's not a lot of sense of motion, which isn't called for. It wasn't in the brief. But it wouldn't be misplaced either. I would consider going that direction as well. Okay, I like it. Good stuff. And I like the age too. Like, you didn't make her decrepit, but she's obviously somebody that has a fair amount of age to her. Okay, next up. Oh, that's the wrong folder. Oh, yes, we will be kicking off a new challenge. So once we get finished reviewing these, we will be looking at the new challenge. So make sure when we finish reviewing these, you don't take off. We've got to announce a new challenge after this. So, yeah. Anna. Oh yeah, I remember seeing your sketch. You posted up. Calypso, a very old shaman, oracle, drains energy from other creatures which she killed. Now this I always find kind of cool. You guys take what I say and they actually build a bit more mythology behind the character than what I gave. And that's not a bad thing to do, especially if you're trying to get your head around the character. It can give you more places of inspiration. So if you kind of need to fill in the backstory in your own mind, consider doing that. But if it takes you too far away from what the brief was, if you think what you found is a good direction, shoot a note over to your art director and ask them, hey, I was thinking about taking this direction, or it might have this influence with the story. Would that be okay? Would that be consistent? And then let them verify that before you go off on some tangent with the character. Okay, she wears a skin, skulls, and feathers to empower her magic. The first creature was killed. It was one of the ancients, a magic creature in the form of a ram. She's still wearing the skull. She took its eyes as well and attached them to herself. Calypso's always before. Okay. I again forgot to turn my phone off. Hang on. Don't need that beeping going on. There we go. Okay, another note on that. I'm not saying this because of what Anna is doing here. It's just making me think of it, so I'm saying it. If you do have a backstory, make sure the backstory is not necessary in order to understand the gist of the character. That is a problem that I see artists make sometimes, is they have a pretty good scene or interesting character, but it's like, I don't get it. It's well executed, but I don't get it. Make sure that all the necessary information is straightforward to understand without reading a backstory. The backstory is for you and lore enthusiasts. Okay, so artistically, I like the interplay between the character and the nature aspects. We didn't have many characters, many concepts following that direction. I did mention that as a possibility, so that is nice to see. You went with the doe ears, which is good. A little bit more of the animal just in there. Using the ram skull on the shoulder is good. The biggest problem here is the positioning of the fawn and the character. Putting them on top of each other, that wouldn't be accepted. Almost any art director is going to tell you, you got to redo that. So make sure that has to be moved away from the character. The lines are too similar, the values are too similar, the colors are too similar, and while you have some lighting, the lighting isn't used in a way that can easily separate the two of them. Okay, it could be that, like the fawn is kind of underlit by a green glowing light, but she has a warm light coming down on her. So you have very distinct warm tones on one character, cool tones on another character, opposing directions on the lights. And it would make it easier to understand the difference between the two. But if I got that small, I'd be going, what's going on? And that is one of the biggest issues with doing illustrations for games, is that you don't know how they are going to use that image. You don't know at what size they're going to use that image. You don't know what resolution they're going to use it. So it needs to be able to work small and large, black and white, and in color. And this is also one that's probably not going to work very well in black and white, right? If we do this, set that to color. Again, we don't have any good value distinction between the two of them. Okay, so going forwards, what would be my suggestions as far as a few things to make big differences on this image? Positioning of the fawn. I'm also getting the impression that this is a leg that you have up. I think I remember mentioning that to you on the sketch. I think I left you a comment on the Facebook group about that, and that needed to be clarified, and it hasn't been. So that I don't understand what's going on there. Now, if you put a rock here, maybe she has her leg propped up on a rock, but at least you need to justify that and then clarify that that is a leg. There's so much stuff going on. I think this is one where you got into the details before you verified that it was a good composition and before you had the lighting determined. That's another thing. So pose, positioning, and the lighting. The lighting is sort of just not real determined. You've got like a really nice green light source here, but it's not affecting anything. And it can have a minimal light, that's okay. But at least let it affect like the hand that's, casting it. Otherwise, let's give some consistent light source. Those kind of conflicting light sources around. All right, very good. Thank you for the submission. Next up, Anne-Marie Gerard. Anne-Marie also sent a note. I glanced at this, but I don't remember what it said. I know this particular piece doesn't really follow the guidelines. Background has a bit of variation in it. She went with a 4-legged satyr. I thought the shape was more efficient for the composition. She has blood all over her. Okay. So Anna Marie got an idea, kind of wanted to go a different direction of it, and noting that she knew that it was not following the direction. Okay, well, I appreciate you letting me know that you weren't trying to necessarily follow what I had said. Art director, of course, would not accept it, but we're just talking about this inspired you to do something else. And hey, I'm glad. If my challenge gets you just going, getting some momentum, and you come up with a different idea that you really are just kind of passionate about, go do that thing. You don't owe me anything, all right? You need to do what you find interesting. So, okay. First thing I'm going to say is you need to stretch that body out. If you're going satyr-like, 4-legged, you need to stretch that body out. Give her like a full deer body. They're beautiful, elegant creatures. So make sure that you pull up some good references for a deer body. Yeah, right now the anatomy doesn't really work. I feel like this gets the idea across. This could certainly serve as a concept direction, but I would suggest revising the image, letting this be your, just your direction, and saying, all right, these are the elements that I want. Half human, half satyr, skull, something's occurred, she's got blood on her, snow. Okay. Now let's go do some more digging. Let's come up with some more sketches, some more poses. Let's check out the anatomy that needs to be there for the animals, etc. Okay, that would be my suggestion. Definitely check this out. Look at the fabric. The fabric has like no folds in it. Looks like she's wearing some sort of spandex, which I don't quite buy. So double check how folds work on a body and that similar pose. Okay, thank you for the submission. Clint Lockwood. Okay, let's pull this up. All right, this is nice, Clint. I like this offhand because it's nice and clean. It's not overly detailed, but everything has been addressed, and it's very clear what we're looking at. Everything is given attention. Okay. I particularly like that bird, man. I gotta say, you stepped it up. Throwing in some nice little extra colors like that cool light around here. That's good. And not overworking the feathers. I gotta give you props, Clint, on that one. Yeah, it is one of those things that is counterintuitive. You feel like you need to put more in, where It's usually the opposite. It's how can I simplify this? And you've simplified it very well. So congrats on that. You got a little extras in there that I particularly like throwing in a little piece of jewelry. And you got this little amulet thing down here on its leg. You got the ring on its toe. Those are small things that just tie the character to the creature to the character a little bit more, and make it feel like it's not just a wild beast that she is called. Like, this is actually some kind of companion that she has. So very nice there. Okay, I feel like you could pull up some better skin tones on the dark skin. Dark skin, probably even more than Caucasian or Asian skin, has some really wonderful skin tones in it. I don't have. It would take too long for me to go find references and try to go pull that all up. But look at some good artwork. Maybe I don't remember if there was one in here. Dark skin. If somebody did that or not. Oh, very simple tone. I know I found one the other day that somebody did a character with dark skin that had just beautiful tones in it, and like that one's not bad. Make sure that you're not just using basically one shade and going lighter or darker. I feel that that's a little bit what you got here. I think you can push it a bit further. Even like on this cool light, with your style, you could throw in that secondary light and be okay. Otherwise, I don't know that you... I don't know that you need it, because right now you have like this blue light on this edge, but it's not used really anywhere else. So I'm going to say either drop it and just get a really nice dark edge on that side, or embrace it a bit more and get kind of that that second light source. Let's see if some of these... Yeah, like this one. I love this amusing style. It's very simple. Colors pop, the forms pop. Not overly detailed, but very, very clean. And you can see that it has a general cool light source here, but the nice warm edge light along that side as well. Little thin edge light. Okay, what else am I looking at here? Yeah, I think the face could just be revised a little bit more. A lot of the rest of this is really well handled. I'm going to say you could... If you were asked for animal legs, just giving her hooves, is it quite enough? As an art director, I would ask you to change that to giving her actual animal legs, not just animal feet. So that would be something I would ask for on change. Good renditions of some of the metals. Yep. Yeah, and consider adding that extra light source if you want more pop to it. There's not a hard and fast rule about that. I also feel like maybe a bit more light. You could probably push the light just a bit more on this one to get it out of being quite so flat. Just making that pop a little more. Yeah. Now, you don't want that change in the bird. It starts blowing the bird out. But on her, since so much of her is the dark midtones, you could add just a bit more extra light, and I think you'd be well deserved. You do that. I just pushed up the highlight value range, and then you can come back and paint in that change wherever you'd want it. I'm looking at like just the tops of the forms. Yeah, just a little bit help to bring it up. Anything else? The white fur. The white fur is like one of the only things that's really not consistent throughout. I'd be, if it was my call, I would be looking at trying to make it a little more consistent, maybe not having quite so many different varieties of things. Like you have some sort of snake thing going on here. Then you have gold. Then you have the rough pelt. Then the nice leather. And then the fabric. Then whatever this silver stuff is. Plus the feathers. Plus the white fur. We've got plus the red hair. Plus the other kind of blue fabric. There's quite a few different kinds of stuff going on, and sometimes that's okay. But in this case, you may consider making these feathers, like that kind of feathers. Like she's got a collection of the feathers that's going off of her, or use the white pelt and let some trim be hanging off of this, or be around here, or be around the edge of the glove. I'm just trying to think, where can you reuse some of the elements so you don't have just 7 and 8 different kinds of things going on. Just bring a little more consistency to it. Okay, I like it. Thanks for the submission. I might have to speed up. All right, it's going to take 4 hours at this rate. So, David. All right, David gave us that plus a RAM, fantasy RAM. Okay, this is one of those times where I'm going to suggest overlapping. This is very spaced out, very kind of drawn out of an image. I'm going to grab Rammy here, paste him onto his own layer, turn these off real quick. I'm just trying to be able to erase the background. All right, there we go. Now let's delete that. Now you could easily overlap the two of them, something like this. And save a lot more space on the image, right? And that's what I'd, probably suggest. So a bit more like that. Okay, now as far as the execution and the design, things are actually fairly clean. That's nice. What I see here is you're snapping everything to an orthogonal view, as everything is like completely straight on or sideways, like a cutout, right? And sure, sometimes you want a character looking straight at you or turned straight to you, but it's a bit too much. It's like the character's body is almost completely sideways, and then there's no turn to a neck. There's no indication that the body is turning. It's just the head is straight at you. And the leg, it's like front. The leg is completely sideways. Right? There's no real anatomy change there. So I'm going to suggest that you go back, look at some poses, take some webcam pictures, and get some more accurate posing going on. This is a bit off. Rule of thumb, let me go back to the rule of thumb here as what makes me think this. Let me come here. So a person will biologically try to support their weight that is directly at the base of their skull. That's the center line. You follow that straight down, that's where you support your weight. And if you're in a standing position, then your body will put your feet sides on either side of that weight line. So here, the feet need to be more like that. And that would be a more realistic place for the feet to be posed to support the body weight. It doesn't look like she's supporting any weight on that arm with the staff because it's too far out. You can't really support yourself out there. So that's another reason. Now, you wouldn't necessarily have to rework the entire character. What you can do is just revise the pose, draw a new pose, and then figure out how you can get each piece and sort of like copy and paste it and just match it up to the new pose, and then clean up the in-betweens, right? Where you have to blend the edges back together. And I've done that plenty of times. It doesn't usually take that much time because you're not starting from scratch. But that would be one of the biggest things to help this really step forward. Okay, as far as the design, I think you're okay with the style. Like, it's not even that far away from this other one that we looked at. Like this, right? You can have just big, fun shapes that are not overly detailed. I think that's sort of the direction you're going with it. And yeah, just embrace that. Make sure that you're trying to play up that as the strengths so that they can carry the rest of the image. But, you know, also look on here that it makes sense three-dimensionally. Everything has, you know, the right turn to it, the right kind of perspective to it. Okay. I do like this design. It's like a ram. It's just fantasy ram. And it's good. It works together. The two of them work together very well. I like the overall design. I'm just thinking let's just tweak the positioning, the posing a little bit. It's a fun character. I love the designs that you came up with on the fur. Okay, the consistent little beads or buttons, whatever they are. I'd suggest moving that arm in a little bit. Right now it's so far out. It would be unusual to hold a staff like that. Usually you're going to hold it a bit closer, and so you're going to get a bit more of a V out of the arm. So, yeah. I like the accoutrements, the little bags. I'm not sure what these are, but I just buy it that it works for her. The funky kind of anime hair, fine, I'm good with it. So, very good. I appreciate it. If you, of course, any of you guys, if you go back and work on these and try to, you know, implement some of these changes, do us all a solid, you know, post it out on the Facebook group. Let us see where you take it. We'd love to see what the progress is. Emmanuel. Okay, another one, orthogonal view. Okay, I like the little, okay, it's not straight on. I feel like this, the upper body, it's, okay, so the character's looking at us. The lower body's turned a little bit. I'd like to see the upper body turned a little bit as well. Or at least, if you're not going to turn the body, then at least put weight more on one leg than the other leg. Like just drop one shoulder and raise the opposite hip. Or just slightly turn the head. Just something so that they don't look like a cutout. Right? I think one of the best examples is, you know, what Ahmed did here. It's just, it's a natural pose. They're kind of sitting their weight back, and they just got their arm up casually. There's a little turn to the body. You know, it's not even quite a 3/4 turn, but it gives the sense of volume to the body, and you lose that when the character is completely flat onto you. You lose the sense of depth. There's no perspective to anything. And we get a bit more perspective here with the animal, but we lose that with this. Okay, now an art director might call you on this, and that is the little flurries. Depending how they would use this image, if they ask for a flat background, what's likely is they're going to separate it from the background and try to put it over top of something else. And little flurries like that are just going to be cut out, because they're going to just go around the character and cut it out. Or they're going to ask you to put it onto a separate layer. So that might be one of those things that you run by your art director before and just say, hey, would this be interfering with anything if I added, magic effects? Again, just trying to let you guys know some little things just to keep in mind, so that when you're going forwards with your projects, that it will save you, trouble down the road. Okay, a couple of other notes. Just with the positioning of what's going on here, the ram horn and the dream catcher thing are really not positioned well with each other. It took me a second to even recognize that was not part of the ram horn. I'm still thinking it's not. It's part of the staff, yeah? Okay, so that needs to be clarified somehow. Like, turn the staff around so the glowy thing's on this side? Or put him on that side? Or put him in shadow? And find a solution to that, because compositionally, it's hard to distinguish what is going on there. Okay, another thing is you've gone in and started doing this kind of fuzzy texture. It's just kind of airbrushed fuzzy texture with really fast, hard details. I'm going to suggest, okay, let's pump the brakes a little bit, take 2 steps back, and start building up a better base before you get to some of these details. Your lighting is not very consistent, hasn't been really thought out. Now you can use a fairly flat lighting, and that's okay. Let's take a look at some sort of flat lighting over here. Look at that. Oh, that one's also half finished. A very common lighting with this sort of image is something like this. It is what you might consider a north light. It is a diffused, generally top-down, cool light. Now, you could have warm light as well. But even like this, it's just a general top-down light source. This looks like a watercolor piece. I don't know if it's traditional or not. But, yeah, even in that style, it has a distinct light going on. Let's see, some of these guys. This is another one, kind of that north light, just the cool soft light coming down. So you don't have to have a full range of values and colors on everything. In which case, you're using the base tones against each other to make things show up. We're looking at one earlier that had that, right? Like this one. This one's a really good example. It generally goes light to dark on each section, but the lights aren't blown out. The shadows aren't too dark. And it's just a little bit cooler in the shadows, a little bit warmer in the lights. That's the color range he's working with. So I would suggest going that same sort of thing here. A note on tattoos is to put them at 50% opacity or less, and then put a small amount of Gaussian blur on them. Tattoos, unless they are just brand spanking new, they soften out a little bit. Of course, they soften out a lot over time, but we'll soften them out a little bit so they're just not super harsh. Okay, I rather like the design you came up with here on the face. Just the kind of the odd features, the no eyebrows, the paint colors, the white paint on the skin. That's cool. But the white hair over the white skin isn't really working. I'm going to suggest reconsidering that decision of how you're handling that. This is also a direction that you can push further. If you're wanting this to be like a very nature-based animal, You could go even further with that by really making it an elemental. And consider looking up concept art illustrations for elemental creatures in Dungeons and Dragons, Magic, Pathfinder, those sorts of things, and see how you can make a creature out of wood and vines and leaves and moss and that sort of thing. And that can be very cool. It's like it is truly a nature created ram. Yeah, I like the idea of that. Fernando. Oh yes, I remember your picture. Okay, good flat background. It'd be very versatile to be used in different kinds of publications and printings. Still going with the double masks thing. You did change this mask. I think this mask is better than the other one. It was just very kind of cliche. The first one was. The blue hanging down. It's a little odd that you went with blue since it's the only thing that's blue in the image. I do like the idea of some sort of, drape around it. That's cool. Okay. I still, like I said the first time around, I'm pretty happy with the concept of the character. You've gone fairly minimalistic with her. She doesn't have as many accoutrements as a lot of the other renditions. But I would easily take her as some sort of shaman, summoner, oracle. Yeah, I could take her as any of those. I don't know what this thing is that she's using here, but it looks cool. The little additions of the hanging pieces of thread is nice. I would suggest one of the changes to go back in. Not change. It's not change. Just one of the ways to push it a bit further is to work the hair texture into these designs. So I'm going to just grab a bristle brush here and grab that. And so, like over here, you're coming back and you're painting this so that it looks like it was painted onto fur. Oh, that's not what I meant. I'm also, you can also use your smudge tool too. So I'm using a bristly brush, and you kind of go back and forth with this. Using a bristly brush and just kind of going with the direction of the what the fur might be doing. And I would have to take a look at a polar bear because offhand I don't remember quite what the hair pattern is, but that would give you a starting point, and then you can come back. And some areas are going to be extra dark. Some areas are going to have some other hair on top of them. Let's pull in, okay? Some areas are going to have some of that white fur covering up bits of it. So you'd want to bring some of them over. I say that because I just finished painting a character that has lots of fur. Alright. I can't show it to you. It's not released, but yeah. So fur is on the mind. So yeah, some areas will wear off a little bit earlier than other areas. And just letting there be a little variance in that. And that will help establish the texture and the thickness of what's going on with this creature. And yeah, because right now it's just the really harsh lines and they compete against the character. Something else to consider would be that there's a really nice correlation between her tattoos or her, paint designs and the painting on that, which was obviously intended. What you could do is adjust it by having those on this creature to be using the blue color. So the designs stay similar, but there's a separation between the animal has one color and she uses a different color. If it was mine, I would choose to go that direction with it, personally. Okay, anything else? I think you could develop the form a little bit more on this. on the creature. You've done well to pull out the form, pull out some of the hair textures, the fabrics, and that sort of thing on her. So my time and attention would be on him, since he is so prominent. I'm pretty happy with her. Good basic anatomy and pose going on. I feel like she has a lot of character coming through a simple pose. Yeah, cool stuff. Fairy. Remember, guys, you got questions, feel free to shoot them over to me. I actually like pausing occasionally to answer questions. It just gives my brain a moment to catch up. Because when you're just doing non-stop critiques, it can wear you down fairly quickly. Okay, Fairy, I don't remember you submitting a sketch, because I don't remember seeing this scene offhand. Maybe I'm just not recalling it. This I would say I think you bit off more than you could chew in the time frame that you had. Yeah, I think you jumped stages trying to get to a finished image very quickly by incorporating like stone textures and hair pattern and scales and ropes and stuff. Don't use it. Get rid of all that. Okay. What I'm going to suggest you to do is you need to double down on your fundamentals. Okay. This piece is not going to be This piece is not going to succeed because you added in some hair texture. This piece is going to succeed because it has good forms, good design theory, good anatomy, good lines, shapes, and I don't even care whether it's colored. Now this goes to everybody, okay? This is just a reminder. Maybe you're new to the stream, maybe you just need a reminder. Never go faster than you can with accuracy. If you can't keep this accurate as far as composition, design, pose, line, shadows, values, if you cannot keep it accurate as it goes because you're trying to go so fast, you're going too fast. And yes, if you were working on an actual project, you need to submit a final image and it needs to be finished. But it is better to send in something that is 3/4 done, that's nice and clean, than something that is really rushed and obviously is not usable. And if you need extra time, obviously it's not the case with this, I'm not going to give you extra time, but if you're working on a project, often if you, I know in my case, there's been several times that I've just said, hey, I have hit a wall on this particular piece and I've repainted it 5 times and I am not coming up with a solution yet, but I think I have an idea. Could I have an extra week in order to address it, in order to keep it up to the quality that we would both expect? Now, I think there's only been one time they said, sorry, man, we're on a hard deadline. I've got to have whatever you've got. But every other time it's been, hey, if that's what you need, just keep me in the loop. Look forward to seeing it. So just keep that in mind. So, Fairy, what I'm going to suggest is go back, use this as, again, your image direction, like I said to the other one, and follow the outline. And I'm going to suggest that you do this on this one. Go back and do this challenge again. Use this as your direction, but go back and do the challenge. Again, blank background, flat tone. I don't care what the tone is, but make it a flat tone. You're not going to rely on stones and rocks and stuff. Don't use any photo textures. Don't use any texture brushes. Just give me some good lines, all right? I don't care if it's like really well done. Here's Combustion Night. I did Combustion Night a while back. If you want to see the making of video of this, it's like 25 minutes long. You can pick it up on the store. Link is in the description. But yeah, go back. I did initial sketch. This is kind of where the image direction is. That's where your image is right now. It serves as a direction and go, that's not quite what I wanted, but the idea is there. And then you start sketching over top of it. And what am I doing? I'm looking for better forms, more consistent forms. And then I start putting in a basic lighting. I just add a multiply layer over top of it. And I start putting in just their darkest cast shadows. And then everything else has that north light that we're talking about. Everything else doesn't have a strong light. It has a soft, diffused light on it. And then you just build up the colors from there. I'm going to suggest you to go about it that direction to keep you from being overwhelmed. Make sure you have good references. Use a reference for your animal. Use a reference for your person. And then also look at some art references to see how some other people have done similar things. I think the beast is interesting. It's like a really big... I don't know. I almost want to think it's like a mole back here, but it's like a warthog up here, which is kind of cool. And then they ride around on it. That's fine. I'm not sure what some of this is going on, so you need to rework that. But hopefully that gives you an idea just how to approach it. Don't feel like you can, bite off more than you can chew. And going forwards with you and everybody else that is going to be working in these art challenges, I would rather see something that is well handled for its stage than something that's rushed. Like if you don't have the time or can't get something finished on time, do what you can well, and then just let me know, hey, I couldn't get to the animal. All right, so I just did Calypso. We had somebody down here that mentions that same thing. I had a limited time. I had to focus on just doing the character, and I wanted to do it well instead of doing a half-assed job and doing more. So that's okay. As an art teacher, I'd rather see that. Speed will come with time. You don't need to force speed. Speed will come just as your skills increase. So that's not the priority. You movies mentions, I always wondered how you chose the paintings you were saving in your folders on PC. You always wondered how I choose. I just see something that I think has. I guess you're meaning like these. I save stuff that I think is a good representation of a particular style or media or kind of design or execution. So something like this, I think it's a really good example of what you might, what I consider like a Hearthstone style or a WoW, World of Warcraft style, where it's bolder, simpler shapes that's very clean and stylized. So I think that's a really good representation of that particular thing. So I saved that. I think this one's a good one, indicating a different kind of lighting, right? It's a dark lighting with essentially the same sort of approach. So anything that has good execution like that, I don't even know who did a lot of these, but I saved those. Over on my goodies folder where I have thousands of images saved, I throw them in different categories. I have some just by artist, some classic artists like Feyr. So if I want to reference how he did some classical pieces, looking at the compositions, like even just glancing at these, you can see that a centered composition or a symmetrical composition was very standard with Feyr. So, those are all good things to look at. I've got a lot of other artists here, Frazetta, Classic, Lipkin, some other magic artists like Jacobson. I like how he does particularly some of his dragons, so I saved those. Other things that you might want to make a folder of are education pages. Things like how to paint chrome, how does metal reflections work, that sort of thing. How to paint legs, or anatomy, Save these sorts of things. Expressions. Those are good as well. One that I go to a lot is ones for lightings and colors. Things that show a really good execution of a particular kind of lighting. Like this, right? This lighting is just epic. Dramatic. How cool is that? That's so well done. Is it completely realistic? No. Would lighting really work that way? Probably not. There's definitely some artistic license in there, but he uses that license very well and very effectively. So, I would suggest getting one that is all about the lighting and the colors. So that's a good one too. A whole folder, of course, on just character design. So it can be all kinds of things. This is one really well done. Very clean image. The Wandering Knight Templar. I think I came across this on ArtStation. Breakdown of the character. Really cool piece. It's a science fiction version of Pinocchio. Excellent. The way that this kind of character design of the synthetic human, I like how they created this. The sort of textures that they created. The idea of the multi-layer see-through body with the tech going on inside. So, those are good too. Create, just a folder of that. What other kind of stuff? Just, some stuff that's just horror-based. Whole folder for Ghibli. Panels and processes. Nice to make a folder of this sort of thing, right? Seeing how somebody went about painting the image, look back, gives you an idea of maybe a different way to go about painting an image. Classical piece right there, traditional painting. That sort of thing. You see how somebody progresses their image. Gets you out of your comfort zone. Maybe you try a different way. Here's somebody's little panels of how they did very quick block-ins to establish lighting and values on a scene. You know exactly the sort of mood they're going for with just a grayscale image and a linear dodge layer. Very nice. Alright, sort of went off on a tangent on that, but hopefully that gives you an idea. Okay. Half a Satyr challenge. Oh yes, I remember the sketch. On the sketch, I think I said don't forget the animal companion. So you've come up with something on that. Good to see that you took that advice. And the lines are a little haphazard, but everything is understandable. I feel like you really went a different direction with the animal. Like, this is all pretty realistic. The hair, the folds, the little fringes, the textures. But this, I don't know what this is. And, like, that anatomy doesn't really work. I would call you on that one and say, it looks like you blocked in an animal, but that doesn't look like a real animal. So, I would say that you could go two different directions with it. Either, find a dog body and reference how the legs work and work anatomy, or make it some sort of spirit creature, right? Like you've got some sort of blue flamey thing going on here. The whole thing could be a summon, a ghost dog or whatever. It makes me think of Zero from Nightmare Before Christmas. But yeah, I mean, you can have an animal companion that is like a spirit animal that she uses a skull as like the anchor for the spirit, following that sort of magic idea. That's a direction you could go with it. I still like the direction of the character. I think it works. The sort of big poncho mantle thing. You got the glowing emblem here. The eye patch is cool. Sort of a Native American sort of design going on with this. What changes would I like to see? I think the hand pose is a little odd with just straight down on either side. I think maybe if she was holding something, that would be a little more useful. I mean, a lot of people having her holding a stick, holding a bone, holding a plant, summoning some magic in her hand, something like that. Another thing to think about is how can the hands be interacting with the character, such as she's got a bag, right? So what about looping one of her thumb over the bag, or how about resting her hand on top of the bag, or how about she's reaching under her poncho to grab something, something along that lines. It gives her something simple. Like if you were just standing there, what would you do with your hands? Put your hands on your hips maybe. Put one hand out, have her hand up like she's about to say something or she's starting a conversation. Anything on that line would be a bit better than just hands at the side. We've got a little tangent here with this line running directly into that line. So we've got to look at that tangent right there, where we've got multiple converging lines right there on that point. So I'd suggest making sure that that's taken care of. This either needs to fall further back this way, or it needs to come, out that way, just so that those all running into each other at that one point. I think you could work the execution a little more. If you want to work it up in lines, that's possible. Things can definitely be done in lines. Let's see, I've got a folder on styles. Oh, and coming up, I think somebody mentioned it here. You should make a chapter with a breakdown on how some styles work and makes them specific. A movies commented that, and it doesn't really work within mood. I think the mood book we will talk a little bit about style. There'll be like a pickup chapter at the end where we talk about some sub things. That's not enough to fill up an entire chapter, but we'll throw style will be one of those things. I'm also thinking we will have a style challenge pretty soon, so just bear that in mind. Coming forward, we'll be doing that. Kina asks, Swatches, with the holidays coming up, have you sorted out how that may affect art challenges for the next few months? No, because I don't know exactly what my schedule will be. If I knew it definitively, I would. When I have internet access, I will keep the challenges going. I don't have any reason not to. So, yeah. I am looking at moving back to the mainland and within the next month-ish. So there will likely be a delay for a week whenever that happens. So I will let you know when I know, but at this point I just don't know. Good question though. Feel free to bring it back up if I forget to mention it. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I remember. I can't remember. Valentin did this. I really like that too. It's really over the top, but great forms, good pop of color, and very consistent with the use of the materials. Right. I was kind of talking about that earlier. Not going overboard with too many kinds of materials, unless they're really similar. Like we got the metal, same color of leather, right? On all the leathers, all just the warm dark tones. The blue green, two versions, blue and green. Right, so it all fits within the same group. So that's really a nice example. That's not what I was looking for though. I just wanted to share that with you because it was a nice piece. Let me go. Yeah, trying to get back to this one. So on your piece, I'd like to see this pushed to being a more finished illustration. I feel like this is kind of just a colored sketch. Can you get that a bit further? You could still use lines a bit on your image. Like this uses lines, but every element has been every element has been painted up. It's been gone back over so that it is a finished image. That's not very lines based. Like this one actually is a bit more lines based. The first image I did for D&D wasn't. I painted out all my lines, and I think it's weaker for it. And I think some pieces like this are actually stronger by having some lines visible, and you work that into your style. So I'm going to suggest that with yours as well. So hopefully that gives you some direction, and thanks for submitting. Panaka says, at Swatches, I love your streams and video tutorials. Greetings from Mexico. Yo. Hey, greetings from Hawaii. Thank you for watching the streams. I'm glad you enjoy them. Alright, I've got to go double down on the speed here. We're already over an hour and I'm not even halfway through these. Igor! Boom, open it up. Okay, excellent. Excellent, Igor. You're kind of spoiling me, man. You always come up with just really great stuff. So, what's good and what would I suggest improvement on? One of the strengths to this is it hits the points, right? It fills out the brief. She's some sort of shaman. I think the inclusion of the minor runes and symbology on the cloak is nice. I've got a couple little accoutrements down here. That's good. It's a very clean, ready to print sort of image. And I like that. Let's give a zoom up for those who wants to see a bit of detail here. Look at some of that lovely detail. Beautiful forms and tones. I think that is one of your strengths, is that you really work in a good mix of shapes with your forms without trying to overdevelop everything. Another good example of painting the fur, like we saw on the bird on the previous image, where they're using a lot of the edge work to indicate the hair without drawing all of the hair. I appreciate the tonal shifts between like the cooler tones, the purple tones, the warm tones, all of that sort of thing. Those are really nice. And this is a nice creative solution for the ram motif. Not going with the straightforward ram horns, but it's actually part of the tattoo design or face paint. I don't really care which one it is. Either way, it looks good. The pointed ears, just a subtle animalistic edge to that. I like it. Oh, you did get the ram design up there on the staff. I hadn't noticed that earlier. And down there too. Those are nice. Subtle things. That's what I call the second read, guys. I mentioned that before. You want a second read. Like you look at it, your first read is character, staff, animal. Second read is, oh, there's designs on the fabric. Oh, she's got, a tattoo on her neck. Oh, look, there's a, ram horn on the staff. It's got a little extra layer that's not in your face, but you look at it a second more, you get more information out of it. So, the possum character, really cool. Okay, what else going on here? Okay, this is one of those where, as an art director, I would likely call you on, those aren't animal legs. Those are human legs that have animal fur on them, but they're not animal legs. Now, what should he do about this? Probably nothing, because this isn't a real commission, right? This piece works very well, just like it is, and if that's what he wants in his portfolio, he should go with it. But I'm just going to tell you, as a fictional art director on this project, I would call somebody on that because it doesn't follow the brief. Something else here is I'm not getting any roundness from these tattoos, and that's what bothers me. It kills the feeling of the volume. So I'm just going to copy and paste that to its own layer. So I just have that piece on its own layer. And then I'm going to warp it. I'll pull this one down, pull that one down. So I'm just getting a curve out of it. Yep. Stretch it back up, kind of fill it the same spot. So you can see that it's a small change, but it runs it from being just a flat across there to having a little bit of roundness to follow the thigh. Same sort of thing needs to be done on that side as well. Yeah, Igor, no, I follow what you're saying there, that they are shoes. I recognize that as shoes. That she's got like the hooves on her shoes, but she doesn't biologically have animal legs. Like a satyr or like a chicken or like something else, right? And that's what the brief had called for. So, but you can decide for yourself whether you actually want to do that. Doesn't make any freaking difference to me, all right? I think it's nice to be put in your portfolio probably either way. What else? Okay, something else. Now I'm getting a little more nitpicky on his, since he's at a higher caliber than with his piece than some of the other pieces. So I'm gonna be a bit more nitpicky with how he's rendered a couple of things here. One is this cloak. That's odd. It's odd how this shape. Like I'm not following how that works. I don't know where the actual end of the cloak is, because if it comes down, like the ends have to be up here and it's making a loop. I don't know. But the end is obviously clearer here, but over here we kind of get lost. I don't know if you were planning on rendering that somehow differently. There's two different pieces of cloth. Anyway, that's not very clear, and I would want that clarified for me. I would suggest just making it at the bottom of the cloth and just taking that loop out of it and just, make that the bottom. And not worry about trying to make all the, like it was looped back or something. Something else is, this all seems really well done with the lighting, in that it all sticks in the mid-tones except for that nice edge light you have on there. But down here it doesn't really follow that this should all really be in shadow. Following what that lighting is, like you've got the lighting there, but this should all be in shadow. So I'm going to suggest that you adjust the lighting on this section down here. That maybe doesn't need the same direct light on it, right? And remember, everything in shadow flattens out. And the only shadows you're really going to have within a shadow are occlusion shadows. And those are areas where things are just simply too close together for light to get in. So like you would have some occlusion shadows where it gets darker up underneath some of these crevices. But unless it's receiving direct light, then it's going to flatten out in tone. Same thing with this, right? So everything back in here needs to flatten out. Now I think that primarily plays to this fabric. This fabric looks a little too reflective. Like it's not fabric like a cotton or a wool or any kind of threaded fabric. It seems more like satin, where it's got a finish to it. It kind of highlights up. It gets too bright and too dark, too contrasty. So let's flatten that down so that the fabric is a bit more matte. And then that way you have higher contrast and brighter colors up around the face, which keeps the tension up there. And sometimes you want more contrast, sometimes you want to play it down a little bit. Same thing here. That's not going to be receiving as much light. Maybe the area going upwards You know, that part going upwards. But the area back in here, not so much, right? Now, one thing that you might be tempted to say is, well, it's got to be, you know, completely realistic lighting because this, and that, and, you know, following the direction of that doesn't quite fall. Hey, there's room for artistic license, all right? And I'm just saying, you got to learn what the balance is. You don't want to be completely realistic because then there's no freedom there. We don't want a photograph. We don't want complete realism because this is fantasy. We do want some consistency where it's not just out in the weeds. So that's what I would suggest here. Is let's keep the higher contrast, higher colors up here. Let this stuff that should be more in the shadow drift slightly towards the flatter tones, and just use of the occlusion shadows. Otherwise, beautiful piece, man. Yeah. A couple of comments. Sornot says, I got to art recently, and I wanted to thank you for the amazing series on art fundamentals. I don't know what you mean you got to art. I didn't know art was a verb, but I'm glad you got to art and that the fundamentals were inspiring or helped get you to that direction. Dima says, does Swatches community have a Discord server? Yes, it does. There is a link. I can't remember if there's a link in the description. Okay, so it looks like there's not a link in the description of this particular video. In some of the videos, I remember to put the link in the description. Otherwise, you can find it. I think there's a link in the welcome post on the Facebook group. If you look at the welcome post, you might have to expand it and go down there and look at it. I don't remember what the link is offhand, but yes, it is official. It hasn't been real active. I keep forgetting to go out there, but yeah, it does exist. So if you want to convince people to go out there and hang out with them, there you go. Ysabel, yeah, yep, I remember this image. Okay, I like the direction. Again, I don't think you changed that much from the initial sketch. Looks like you just kind of clarified some things, developed it a little bit more. Okay, this is one that I think has a good direction, but it needs to be much cleaner to be considered professional or to be used in the industry. And I don't think it's something that necessarily needs a lot of changes. Let's start by pushing it a little further, right? As far as the values, we don't have to say that it's pop art kind of pop to it, but let's get a nice range of values, right? Full range of values there. And what happens when you get a wider range of values? It allows the colors to pop more. Because if the colors are sitting on a high range, there's not colors just the higher range the colors are, the more muted they have to be. It's only when you start getting down to 50-60%, as far in the value range, that you get the purest tones. So make sure that we're not limiting ourselves on the value range there. Okay, so what you need to do is come back into this and just start cleaning it up. We can look at some of these other ones, like this. It's like this is painterly, but things have nice clean edges, right? Everything is well defined, even if it's not, photorealistic. Nice clean edges, still painterly. And here, it's going to be a fairly slow process, but it wouldn't take all that long. You can still use something like a bristly brush. I love my little bristly brush. And you're just going to come back in here. And what you want to do is be tasteful with the edges. So like that one's rounding around there. Maybe that one you let be a little softer. But you don't let all of the edges be softer, right? Most of them need to be maybe not harsh, but they need to be strong. They need to be firm edges. Also look for opportunities to tell the form of something through the edges, like the ridges on this horn. Prime place to use edges to tell a bit more of that form. Right around there, right? Coming back there, adding those. These, adding a bit of form by indicating the woven pattern on the baskets. Yeah. So that would be my suggestion. It could be taken a lot further and really developed to have a lot more form. I think that's one of the next things that you would need. The lighting is very, very soft, very undetermined. So if you want to go further than just cleaning the piece and pushing the values back in, I would suggest start thinking about what the lighting direction is. Determine what it is. So like, is the lighting coming from up here? Then that means that there should be a shadow being cast by the head, right? And there should be a shadow on the horns, and you've got to start thinking about it three-dimensionally. And maybe it's not even a harsh shadow, right? Maybe it's a soft shadow, because this is one of the this is like one of those images that have a very soft light. Something like this, right? No. Even, and this isn't a bad idea, right? Get something like this. Let's open it up. So I like this guy. He's cool. I like how this was rendered. Copy, paste. Put this up here. There. Then you can have this guy sitting here. And then you just kind of you're not drawing this, right? You're just looking at how he's handled some of this. How does he handle some of that drop shadow? Okay, so it's a value to two value stop darker, and it goes down basically straight down. Okay, well, I can do that. Oh, it looks like he's going a bit warmer with the fur. All right, you know what? I'm going to warm my fur up a little bit too. And it's going a bit cooler with the shadows. Okay, that's cool. You know what? I'm going to do a bit cooler in my shadows too. So what you're essentially doing is matching the lighting and the color and a bit of the style to your reference image. And this isn't a bad idea. This can really help give you an idea of how to execute an image, right? This is look at that nice light to dark pattern there without going overboard. And then this also works in a lot of tone. Like these are reaching to a lot of grays. We don't necessarily need a lot of gray. You can have nice warm tones down there too. Yeah. So that would be my suggestion, handling that. Okay. Johanna. Let me start doing it this way. Okay, Johanna. Now, I believe I saw on the Facebook group, Johanna posted that they used a pose program, did a 3D model of the character, posed it, and then used that as their base to start working from. And that's a completely legitimate option. If you are interested in learning a program like, I think it was Poser that they used, which I barely have knowledge of how to use. I can't teach you how to do that. But yeah, legitimate option too if you want to get accurate proportions and forms. But make sure that you've got a good pose and it's not too stiff. Yep. Okay, so you're continuing with the Greek oracle approach to it, and I think it's good. I believe that Johanna said on their post that they were not as finished with the piece as they wanted to be. I'd say so. I feel like there's certainly some areas that are not as developed as they should be, but I also think that it's an excellent direction. So, what's some thoughts here? A couple of thoughts is this feels odd that it's laying over so much. Any piece of brass that big with this thing with that much weight on it, it's got to be a little heavy. And she's just holding that angle with her wrist because I don't see anything that's heavy enough on this end to really offset that weight. So I would suggest making that a bit more vertical, just so that it doesn't seem odd. Like when I glance at it, I feel like she's about to drop it. It's like it's so tilted that she's about to drop it. And I don't think that's what you're going for. So I'm going to just suggest that you tilt that back a bit, and then let this overlap that as it leans back. I do this, and you probably can't even see that in the camera. Okay. Okay. I like the style rendering isn't quite matching up. Like it's really well rendered here on the face, but the animal skull is not rendered. It's just sort of blocked in right now. I will assume that is one of those things that you will get to as you continue working on the piece. So I'm not going to make a big deal out of that. Same thing with the cats. Like Kitty down here doesn't have the same level of execution on it. Okay, the folds look really good. I don't know if that was from Poser. Did you figure that out from Poser? If so, that was a good use of Poser to figure that out. So, cool beans there. The gold feels a bit dull. So, make sure that you go look at some references for gold jewelry, armor, necklaces, that sort of thing, and see how the patterns work and the colors that are created. They just feel, a bit plasticky, which is a bit duller. Think about your lighting and how you want to handle it. You've got a couple of options there. Again, just referencing back to how some other people have handled theirs. You can go with the soft lighting like this and kind of let it drift into shadow, which is very common. You can do something a lot more harsh, a much more direct, brighter light on it like that. Right? You can use some side lights if you want to. Rim lights. I almost feel like this is a slightly more mysterious character, or her whole look. And that's what's making me think that a light shadow over all of her would be nice with a little edge light, a rim light going on one side. Another thing that you could consider is if you move this closer to her, then you could use warm light from the embers to actually light side of her, right? Just her upper body from the warm light from the embers. Just an idea. Okay, otherwise, I think it's more of an execution thing. The idea, the concept is moving forward well. I did mention maybe adding some designs onto the fabrics. I still think that's a good call. They can be minor, right? They don't have to be really, crazy, like bright and harsh designs. But some minor designs being added to the fabric would be a good addition. Your second read sort of thing. Okay, this is from Jonathan. Jonathan is going a different direction than I was expecting. You're going like 3D rendering with this. I had no idea you were taking this 3D rendering. Okay. The art director side says this is not what we asked for. We did not ask for rocks in a gateway in Starscape. So as an art director, I would not accept this because it is not what was requested, and the time was spent on everything other than what it should have been spent on. I'm going to just challenge you not to let that become a habit. You can get away with that on non-professional stuff, but if you get in the habit of doing that, you'll start doing it on professional stuff as well. You'll allow yourself to be sidetracked onto non-essential elements of the image, and make sure that you're not starting that bad habit. Now, you're free to do this, of course. Just exploring, like I said, if it inspires you to take a different direction, go with it. But just recognize you're making that conscious decision. Okay, so you're going the astrologer direction with it. That's cool. Got big cat. I gotta say the scope is actually quite, telescope it's really quite cool. I think that's the highest designed and executed thing on the image, which wasn't anything that was called for, but the basic pose is pretty good. Like the cat looking over there, like the two of them looking off is nice. I don't know 3D. I don't know how to tell you what to do in 3D. So I'm going to just tell you my impressions of what needs to be adjusted, and then you have to know how to actually implement that in your program. That's what I can do. Okay. The expression is pretty blank right now. Everything has your same surfacing. So I would suggest that needs to be changed. If this needs to be fur, it needs to be actual fur. The hair looks like it's not actual hair. It's like sculpted, Again, another place that some designs on the paper, some beads, designs or something on the bag. What you're trying to do at this point is go from generic character to specific character. And that is a step that a lot of novice artists don't make. They will create an image direction, and it will never get out of being generic. And what you need to do is make it specific. What is unique about this character, this person, their job, their life, where they live, who they are. Give some specificity to this particular character. I'm not sure where you're going with the lighting and stuff. It needs to have a more interesting lighting than this. It's very straightforward. I don't know. I'm limited, honestly. I'm limited about what I can say because I'm not even sure you're trying to fill the direction anymore. I feel like you're kind of trying to fill it, and then you're obviously not. So I don't know whether to critique it following the guideline or not. So I'm afraid that's sort of where it has to stop. I mean, if this was just an illustration, I would say other things, but I don't even think they're going to apply to what you're trying to do with it. So, yeah. A Leo. All right, Leo. Let's make this a little smaller. There we go. All right, not very much has changed from the sketch design-wise. It looks like you just went about actually just executing it, putting in the details, putting in the colors, that sort of thing. This has some good elements on it, and it has some elements that really need to be popped a bit more. I'm kind of with William here. Yeah, it looks like a lynx-ish. A little creature. I like the creature. I don't know what it is, but I like it. It's another one that is overall a bit too dull. All right, let's make sure that we're not. I don't know why I did that. There we go. Like it's all just sitting within a couple of values. You have a few white spots, and then everything else is just mid-tones to mid-darks. So let's brighten that up. I'm going to just push this up with the levels to begin with. Just doing that. Look how much extra pop we get out of that. And sometimes you want to go for subtlety. Absolutely. Sometimes you want to be really subtle with your colors. Very minute changes. But generally on this kind of image, that isn't what you're going for. These are standalone images that need to hold up and have presence and pop on their own. We look at the Dungeons and Dragons images, and look at this stuff. Good pop. It's standalone, right? If it's too muted, it's not going to work. Like even my image is about as muted as you can. It's supposed to be nighttime, so I even considered like trying to push that a bit further. And if I were to do it again or to adjust it, I probably would. So like on this one, I think that would be a good call, is to just at least brighten it up so that we get more of these tones. I like these tones. The speckling is nice. Texture, uniqueness to the skin. The variations in the skin tones is good. I would say less spotty though. Let's have more tonal changes as far as like this. Let's see. Let's get a new layer, set it to color. Let's grab that tone and just say this is all kind of that tone, but yet areas around the elbows, the elbows get redder, and then maybe it gets greener as it gets towards the hand, right? So the whole arm starts kind of yellow at the top, and it fades down, and then joints maybe are a bit more red, and then it fades into kind of your yellow tone at the bottom. So it allows you to keep a lot of those colors that are nice in this image without them just looking random. It just looks kind of spotted, and I don't think that is necessarily the strongest thing that we could have. So that. Same thing on the face. This is a bit more spotted, so maybe like it's green around the hairline a bit more, and then you're going a lot more of the warm tone around the nose. You got the bluish green kind of around the eyes. Small changes, but it's something to it's a good topic to bring up. Okay, what else? Overlapping this might be a good call. Putting the cat, like, I call it a cat, alright? Putting the creature so that, its head, oh yeah, that's on a color layer. So that it's setting, like over here, instead of just being completely separate. But these are some really nice tones in here. I like some of these shapes. William mentions doing skin tone for a humanoid hybrid creature is tough. It can be tough. It can be fairly unnatural trying to use those colors. And it can take a fair amount of experimenting. You just got to play with it. All right. Okay, up here, this looks like it was done in gray tone and you just threw some color over top of it. What I would suggest is that you go back and you paint it. Right? So some nice full opaque brush strokes so that you get out of that over painted gray look. That it looks like a like an old black and white photograph that's been colorized, and it doesn't have quite the same look. So, I mean, I'll use the same approach. I'll do black and white to color sometimes, but then you always have to make sure that you go back over top of it and actually paint it in color so that the end of it is brushstrokes in normal full tones, right? It's just a little time thing that you have to invest in for that particular process. Little cast shadows here. I think that's something else is the lighting is a bit dull on this, and we're losing some of the forms because of it. So cast shadows being a bit more of a thing. Developing some of those. All right, I think that's enough on that one. There's plenty of other things that you could do, but I think that's good. Address the overall values, get the colors to pop out, values to pop out a bit more, rework the skin tone a little bit. You have that down here. It's like it's warm to green, and essentially let's use that on the rest of the image as well. If the eyes are glowing, let's rework that so that there's more actual glow from the eyes. Otherwise, it's just like you didn't paint any eyes. Jonathan asks, I wanted to send 2 versions with and without background, but at the end there was a lot of panic and just trying to finish as much as I can. Well, yeah, you didn't need a background on this one, so if I don't ask for it, don't bother. That's one of the reasons that I didn't request a background, is I wanted people to be able to put all of their time into the character. Manuel. Okay, yeah, this one. That was kind of the earthy character. Alright. This is one of the furthest from what I would initially think of for the character, but I can see where you're coming from. Okay, so some of the things here, you did put the mouth back in. Good, because the character actually does need to speak. But they have no eyes. Animal has no eyes. I think it works when you take the eyes from both of them. Maybe it uses the skull to see. I'm thinking maybe that's what your idea is on that one, which is kind of cool. That's a curious idea for its magic. The pose is kind of odd, like it's standing on its tiptoes, like it's floating, but it's not floating, but it's also laying forwards. I'm going to suggest making a change there, that if the character is not actually standing but floating, then let's move the character up so that they are distinctly off the ground. Just make it so that they are legitimately floating off the ground. Leave your little magic effect so that we're using some sort of she's using some sort of power to make her levitate. I'd buy it. Okay, fine, she has levitation power, but just don't put her on her tippy toes like she's using power to stand on her tiptoes. And then also you might want to just move this whole character back, right? So kind of what we did on the other image, well, same thing as we did on the other image, but doing it backwards, which is the center weight of the body is going to be right between the 2 feet, the 2 angles. And right now it's significantly out of that. So we would want the body adjusted so that the back of the neck, which would be about there, would be up from it. Now, you might be able to get away with a little bit, you know, but I feel like you're sort of pushing it right now, like they're almost about to fall over. So, you know, consider that as an option. All right. All right, you have the horns coming out of the actual shoulder area, which is possible, design-wise. But when you do that, we need to integrate them more. It feels like they're just stuck on. It's a great place to incorporate them into the actual flow of the character. And if you look at horns, you'll see that most of the time, with these kinds of horns, they're not perfectly round. If you looked at a cross section of them, right, they've got angles to them, and the angle twists. So, like this would be flat, 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 and then this would be doing that, right? And then this would twist around. So there's this whole twisting thing that goes on with the way that these work, and different ones twist different directions. And you would have to find one and probably just try to follow it. But that would give better form to this instead of just being this generic round thing. And that also allows you to get something and use it as a plane. So this, these two have planes that they come out of, the center of the chest. So you get to use that design coming up, from down here. Now all of a sudden that flows into the body a lot better. You could even have it coming from the shoulders too, depending on how that works. We are losing the feminine, the woman aspect of her quite a lot. So as an art director, I would probably ask you to rework the body so that, let's get a bit more of the chest, the breast. Let's bring them back in a bit more. You don't have to be, real, do a lot of anatomy on that. On nipples and everything. But let's give that. Think about how to develop the hips a bit more, so a bit more feminine. And then maybe the mouth as well. Like, you can have the rough and everything, but that's not a feminine face. That's a very masculine / toad kind of face. So you might consider doing, this sort of semi-attractive nose and mouth and body or torso, but this sort of off-putting, dark, beast-ish body and stuff going on with it. The juxtaposition on that would actually be pretty good. Like the white war paint is good. Put that on the beast. I'd say a little bit more on the character. Right? Just a bit more of that maybe on the body instead of all the little stuff. Just maybe that, maybe something like on the back of the hand or something. Yep, okay. Well, that gives you some suggestions. I admire the creativity on that one. I would have not considered going out that direction, but yeah, you did well. Calypso, the Wanderer. This is by Mark Wong. Okay, very clean image. Give us, I guess it's just a close-up that's reversed. Okay. Pull it up over here. Owl, satyr direction, satyr legs. Okay, it fits the bill. Female, druidess sort of look to her. Animal companion, lives out in the wild. Okay, you've got some beads and stuff. This is one where I think you're letting the textures run away with you. And it's not doing you any service. I'd rather see you actually paint this. Because the painted areas are not matching up well enough with the photo areas. So, yeah, let's find a better medium between those. Like, this bird has so much visual information on it. Yeah. Practice your art skills. Let it serve a bit more for your art skills by actually drawing this and not just using photo textures. I know that in one of my previous recent videos, I showed how to use photo elements to help concept a character. And maybe you were trying to go with that, but like the skin tone is very washed out and the lighting is sort of incongruent. And those are things that you can't really get wrong and still work with this approach. So I would say simplify on that. Something else is, if you are going to use some photo textures like this, what you can consider doing, and I'm going to just grab this area here on the horn to help you blend it into your painting. You can just go up to filter, blur, do like a smart blur, and this is just what it's set on right now. Let me see if that's good. There we go, and that's even better. See, this is 100% photo detail, and it's far more detail and visual noise than what you're going to be putting into the painting part, which is going to make it a discrepancy. That's not going to work. It's not going to help your image. So what you can try to do is come up here and run a smart blur so that you're minimizing that. It's going to average out a lot of those details and simplify it. Still give you the same values, still give you the same colors, but remove a lot of that visual complexity so that it is easier to mess with. Then you can come back in with maybe your smudge tool and just rework some of those edges that are a bit too, filtery looking. And then you can start actually painting on top of it, right? And make whatever adjustments that you want to it. Color, lighting, maybe you don't want it that dark. Maybe you like more of that warm tone to make it pop. Maybe you want to adjust the width of this thing, right? Make it maybe bigger on this end. Whatever it is, let it serve as the basis. Don't let it serve as the actual thing. Yep. Let it direct the... let it inspire the direction, not set the direction. Yeah. Little thing on that. Yeah, but I like the design. I think it's a good costume. This feels a little odd. Just that. Consider coming in here and just putting in some stitching or something along the edge, so I know that it's defined as the edge. Also, not a bad place to add in some little spots where maybe it's worn through. Yeah. I like the little change on that, making it extra long on the ears of the owl. Consider where you can adjust that. You got the little design on there too, matching hers. That's good. Very good. Mateus. Oh yeah, I remember this. Okay, this is pretty clean. It works well. Like, you could probably get away with this in most cases, doing very minimal amount of ground. Another one where we're not catching the darks. Might just pop that a little bit more. Yep. Okay, I feel like the pose is one of the biggest issues on this. It's slightly unnatural, like being straight out. Again, let's put the arm a bit more in that sort of pose. It feels a bit more natural. You know, where it's a bit closer to you. This feels like she's a standard bearer in an army or something. Like it's too rigid. This feels odd. Like, why would you hold your arm out like that, holding a skull like that? What? Like, I'm trying to think. It's like you can have that here, then the arm comes across, and then you know has the skull hanging down there. So like she's propping her arm up on her leg, or if you want the arms out, then you can have like both of the arms are up, right? And then she's holding the staff up, and then she's holding the skull, right? And then it becomes a display thing, like it's part of an action that's going on with her movement. I like the creature. I'm not sure what he is, but he's cute. I like him. Very fluffy. I think maybe refining him a bit more as far as like hair. Whole thing is just kind of fuzzy. So what we want to do is come in and start defining the shapes on the edges. That's not really the brush I need for this. So what we want to do is start coming in here and creating the hair pattern on the edge. We looked at one of these other ones that was that way, right? About using the outside and suggesting hair or fur. Yeah, just a little cleanup on him along the edges. I think would do wonders for him. Okay. Yeah, I think that's what it is, Michael. A bear crossed with a fox. And I'm on board with that. That's good stuff. This is all good design. I like the double horns. I feel like a little motion to the hair would be nice. Otherwise, it seems too stylized. Like, if we were to get a little breeze, some of the hair, you know, following a direction, that's almost always going to be better than just flat hanging hair. Or if you go with the flat hanging hair, then it needs to actually hang down over the face, or give me a reason why it's not, because there's no reason that hair is going to do that. It's just not going to do that. It's not going to keep a perfect arc from the top of your head down to your chest without something holding on it if it's that straight. Like, it would just do this. Or it would do that if it was, you know, looped around your ear. Or something. Or you've got this, you've got some sort of band there across the forehead. So put the band here and just let the hair just fall out of the band at a certain point, right? So that you've got that going on. And then on this side, you've got some hair that's being caught in the breeze. And so some of the hair at the bottom is falling and trying to follow the breeze over here, right? And that gives a subtle amount of movement to this image. It'd also be, you need to move all this little stuff that's hanging would need to have a little motion in it as well. It's a small thing, but it's one of those things that brings a bit more life to the image, and that does separate classes of art, is little additions like that, having a bit more movement or realism about how the hair falls and that sort of thing. Megan. Okay, now Megan, yeah, I remember we used your piece on the last thumbnail. Okay, not any major changes from what I remember seeing. I just went about cleaning it up. Okay, cool beans. Going with a line-based style and just developing the colors underneath that. I like it. I particularly like the wavy hair that you've embraced on her mantle. Sorry, my nose is really itching right now. And on the beast, the wavy hair is nice. That's good. Gives a nice texture. And the subtle changes or the soft gradations between the skin tones and the dark horns and on the dark skin to the black fingers are excellent. Okay. Yeah, this ticks all the boxes for me. I would like to see a little more separation between the two, the animal and the characters. So something that you can do, and you've done it a little bit, but you could consider doing it a bit more. Let's grab that tone and then paint it. And it's something that's fairly standard, is adding a forced atmosphere distinction between planes on an image. So like the character, the creature back here fades into... Now see, you did it on that horn, and I'm just saying that you could take that same sort of approach and kind of let it go left to right so that the character stands out a little bit more. Yeah. That would be one solution. Because that's one of the major things right now. It's just their values and the colors are so similar that one isn't really standing out very well over the other one. The other option is to add some sort of light source that's hitting down the side. Would that really work? Because that would be on that side of her. Unless you like backlit the hair as a solution, like you've got the backlit hair on this side that's hanging down, and you would need that consistent though. Anywhere that there is hair that could be backlit, that would need to have a kind of a glow to it. And then you would need to play the values of the other one a little bit. Anyway, consider some options with that. This is another time where let's decrease the folds and how dark the folds are and let the individual tones go against each other. I'm going to go back to this one as the example for what to look at on your piece, which is each piece. You can look at the value and the color range of each section is very distinct from its neighbor, and that allows it to stand out. And you notice how the folds are identifiable, but they're not as harsh as the edges and the shadows, like the cast shadows. And so on yours, I think that is an option, because right now there's so much black and there's so many black lines essentially that the eye kind of doesn't know where to look. One of the first places I'd look at is like this. Yeah, okay, let's keep a little gradation from the darker kind of green tone at the top to warmer tone at the bottom, but let's decrease the amount, how dark the folds are. The same thing with like this fabric. Let's lighten some of those folds up. So now we're trying to be a little more choosy so it doesn't just look so busy. And we're not getting rid of them, but we're taking them down to about 30% of what they were. Because the black is getting just a little overused here. So we want to probably keep it mainly for the edges and not so much for the things in the middle. Like you can have a little kind of a darker edge along the edge of the arm, but let's keep maybe the middle a little bit lighter. Same thing on the hair. Edges of the hair a bit brighter, a bit darker. Area in the middle of the hair, let's edge out that black. Just let the tone of that hair set a little better. So that we actually have a little bit of subtlety to some of this. And we're not reaching for black on all of our lines. I think that essentially everything that you need is already here. We're going to just get a little more subtle with some of your values. And then what it'll do is just help separate the pieces of the area into proper sections. Anyway, you would need to go through each part of it, like this basket, like this whole basket could probably be a bit lighter. You're just going from direct black on this side to very light on this other side, where the whole thing could probably be a bit brighter. And this is a case where it's actually the skin could very likely go darker in the background so that it stands out, right? Because it's already getting way back there in value. Yeah. But they're doing a good. They're very conscious. I'm talking about Megan here. Megan is very conscious about trying to keep things separate and using light against dark. But sometimes you need to reverse that, or at least attempt to reversing it and seeing if it works. Because what I did right there was I just reversed the light-dark interplay of she had a dark handle against a light skin, and I think that if you adjusted it, then you allow the basket to remain light, and then you allow the shadow to be consistent with making the skin darker as it goes into the shadow. So sometimes you need to reverse that and then rework the system so that it stays consistent. Yep. Yeah, and the same thing, kind of carrying it back over to him, right? Because some of these shadows, they're good shapes, but some of the shadows here on the interior sections are just hitting a bit too dark too fast. So let's keep that dark right around the eye, but then some of this other area, a bit more subtle. More subtle. And then that allows the black to have more power. We overuse the black, we kind of remove its power. We don't want to do that. So, yeah. Okay. Excellent. Yeah, actually, Megan, I think I said this first time around. This is probably the closest to what the direction was that I was actually considering for the character when I wrote the write-up. So it's super cool to see that. Thank you for joining the challenge. Michael. Megan says, just got here. Thank you so much for the pointers. You're welcome. Thanks for joining, Megan. And I'm glad that you were able to catch the live stream and not have to wait for. Oh yeah. So the color of your background and the color of my board match. Okay. All right. Yeah. So I remember some of the things suggested with this. Yeah, you developed that a bit more. I think this is better. Instead of just being the one orb that looked kind of like a lollipop, making it more into some sort of plant that she found, or magic or whatever. So, the Black Raven. Lighting, and the same thing actually on this one. The colors work well. Green, red, or kind of the reddish rust red, and the green. But we're jumping to black too quickly on too many things. So essentially the same thing that I was just going over. Let's save black for the areas that are really obscured, like back here, up underneath the base of the black bird. Some of the edges that you want to show up, like the base of the staff. But for the rest of it, let's not jump to black so fast. All right, let's use more midtones. Bring the midtones back. Use the base value and color of different sections to distinguish themselves from each other, or use large gradations. So we see some blue tone here. I am sort of a fan of that. Let's double down on that, right? So let's get blue. It's fairly close. Double down on that blue. That's a nice color. Actually, it's a bit too... Oh. I'm saying it's a bit too vibrant of a blue to play with the other colors. It needs to be a bit closer to one of the other ones. I'm going to shift it over to the green so that we don't have just 3 main colors. But the blue-green is close enough to the green that we can probably get away with it. Then that green light can actually be used elsewhere, right? Make sure it's consistent across the character, not just on the bird. And that green light needs to be running down the character. And then it could be shifting into shadow from one side to the other. So obviously I'm just averaging this out. So a bit brighter over here by her light source. And then it fades into shadow over here. And then it gets to the cool light on the other side. Yeah. Things facing that side over here are going to get that blue color to them. Even the hair is going to shift over a bit. It might get to be a bit more of a violet tone, the blue and the red kind of combining together. Still want to shift the value down a little bit though. Yeah. We could be getting a cast shadow across there. It also means that we're going to have cast shadows on this side from the nose if it's that strong. So make sure that you're referencing how cast shadows fall across the face in that position. So, that would be the direction, is just establishing a bit more of a nuance to light to it. Probably playing up that cool light here, having the warm light over here, or it's not really warm, but like semi-warm light. You could even push those a bit further if you wanted to. Yeah, cool. I like the overall design of the character. I think it's an interesting set of fabrics and the way that they're put around the character. I think I mentioned lengthening that. So that's cool. I like the little extra bits. This is another one where the tattoo probably needs to be lightened up a little bit. It looks like something that's just stuck on her rather than a tattoo. Tattoos need to be softened out a bit more, a little more transparent. Where are we? Murillo! I've got to wrap. I've got to get about wrapping this up. Okay, I can't keep opening everything and doing little paint orders, slowing us down too much. Okay, Murillo. Different direction. All right. Very bright. I'm getting like a Mayan sort of Cinco de Mayo feel. It's not bad. I'm just thinking how to keep it consistent. Okay, the legs don't work with the body. They are. There's just nothing combining the body with the legs, and making that make sense at all. For one thing, even human legs would be longer than that. Human legs would be down to here, and usually satyr legs make somebody even taller than they would normally be. So these need to be. You got a couple of options. Well, what is not an option is that the legs need to be longer and lengthened out to fit the length of the upper body. What you have to do is figure out how to incorporate the design of the legs to the human. Now, a lot of the other people have found ways like giving them animal ears, slightly animal features, so that there's a connection between those, making it actually more like human skin until it gets to the foot, and then it's more of a hoofed foot, so that you have skin continuing down and it becomes more and more animal as it goes down the leg. Something like that could also help. Something that's really just drawing right now is it's completely thick, dark hair up to here, and then it's completely Caucasian, hairless skin up here. So there's this massive change underneath this fabric from here to here. And it's just too much of a change. So that's the main thing to look at. I do like the accoutrements. I do like the color, the bright violets, the gold. I particularly like this sort of dress. I don't even know what you call this. But the little gold tiles with the chains connecting them. That's cool. I like the bird. That's neat. Got some good colors on it. So yeah, I think that's your biggest issue is on this one. There. These feel haphazard. To finish the image, address the legs, clean this up so it's definitive Feyr design, and the feathers too. I assume these are feathers, but right now they're just paint strokes and they don't match the amount of detail or attention that's been given to some of the rest of it. Yep. Nick. Okay, Nick. Another one, you're probably getting too dark. I'm going to say this is not publication acceptable because you're going to lose a little color and a little contrast when things get printed. And that's kind of the idea of this challenge, right? Things that would be printed in some sort of book or a card or whatever. And this would just all muddy out. So the design is nice, but another one where don't forget to adjust the values. So here, you open your levels palette. This tells you this is not a balanced image. Now, does every image need to be balanced? No. But this is an overwhelmingly unbalanced image. Ideally, you should have some midtones. There are no midtones in this image. Oh, there it is. That one little line, that's the midtones. Everything exists in starting at medium dark to dark. There's no lights, no medium lights, no midtones. Boom. That's the color of the paper right there. If you're curious what all that is, that's the paper color. So by adjusting this, we can actually get a lot of color back into the image. Okay, then I would just use the history brush to bring some of the tones back on the face because it sort of overblew the face. So just by setting that back to 50%, go back over that, and then it will bridge halfway between where it was and where it is now, so those match up a bit better. Okay, now that we're looking at this, I say solid stuff, man. Nick, right? Man. Yes, man is correct. Well, rendering on all of this. That's another reason not to go overly dark, is you lose all that beautiful work you're doing. This is, I think, the best horn that I've seen submitted. Check that horn out. There is some good work being done there. What I like about this is the subtle ribbing. Look at the little ribbing going on here. That's nice. And he's working in the twisting pattern to it. You see the side ridges, twist to it, and the subtle color changes, right? The warm and the violet tones, and the little warm glow at the end, some sort of magic horn. I particularly like that. That's good. Okay, the birds, cool. I like the birds extra. This is all particularly well done. That's pretty professionally rendered. What you might think about doing is just a little bit, a minor. It helps when you go back to the normal paintbrush. There we go. I'm doing some minor little creasing on the leather, and usually on leather, the creases are actually lighter than the rest of the leather. On a lot of other stuff, you do creases with something that's darker. With the leather, it's actually lighter because they put oil on top of the leather and it darkens it. But then what happens is the leather cracks, and where it cracks, the unoiled, unsullied part gets to be able to be seen. And that part is still the lighter part of the leather, right? Or the area that's been rubbed off, the oil and the varnish or whatever has rubbed off, and you get back to that lighter tone of leather. So, and you usually have some little pieces of that. And there's some subtle stuff, and you can just go back and do that along. Don't go overboard with it, but a couple of little spots here or there would be nice. So just the next step. And up on these, something to think about is putting in actual thick stitching. So you can create some worn spots where the stitches have to go, right? So you have like stitch, stitch, stitch. And there's a slight buckling where the leather has to bend around the stitch. And those are subtle details. This isn't going to make the image, but it's just the next step of rendering. If you want to take it a bit further, you can kind of see what that looks like there. Small stuff. But you'll see that. If you look at some D&D artwork, that's one of the things. Next thing, the face really is one of the weaker points, and I feel like it is generic face. It's generic face that you did without any good reference, or with reference that didn't have the right lighting. So grab yourself a hoodie, have a friend grab a hoodie, and hold a lamp, stand by a window, go outside, wherever the lighting is fairly accurate. Look online for reference photos with hoods. DeviantArt's got a bunch of them. I've got some saved. I'm not going to bother going looking for them, but you can go out there, you can find some. And I think you'd find with this lighting, make okay, this is not even across her face, which means that it's unlikely that this shadow is going to be even. You're probably going to get something like that, right? Or the whole face is shadowed. All right, that's also not a bad option, to have the face shadowed and just let the eyes glow. But if you do that, then what we need is some midtones around the eyes, and it's not just white. Especially if something gets printed like that, it's not going to hold up very well. So what you have to do is get a nice warm midtone something like this, depending on what color you want, right? And you want to go around the eye. If you want, you can actually let it light some of the areas around it. Depending on how bright you want the eye to be. You know. But, yeah, I've reworked the face. It just feels very generic. And I think that if you pushed up the realism and the rendering of that, it would be considerably stronger. Anything else? No, I'm not going to say too much else about this. Or down here, something I would like to see is, let's get more metal feeling out of this. You know, more of a sheen somewhere on this thing. So it's like it's catching light at some point, and like you have that little edge light kind of along there where the sharpest part of the blade is. I think that's a good call. I think the whole thing is kind of dirty, so throwing in some browns, good option. It's one of those places where we can get a nice little shadow underneath that. Yeah, that's something else that we could add on some of these, just a little drop shadow, just to help to give a sense of three-dimensionality to all this. You don't have to get real, you know, crazy with having to work out the angles and all that stuff. You can just kind of spitball some of those. Same sort of thing that you did down on these, right? And basic drop shadows. Then something else you can do with these is add a second kind of tone at another point. So it picks up some other color down at the other end. Slightly warmer tone. And get that metal to actually look a bit more metallic. Yeah. You can do the same thing up here on this. Looks like that's made out of metal. And I'm being, again, on this one, a bit more nitpicky. So just know that these aren't big mistakes. These are minor changes. But it's what the piece needs next. So that's what I'm mentioning. Get that metal to pop a little bit more. All right, I loved your submission, man. You obviously put in a lot of time and a couple of little tweaks. I say you ought to be proud. Put that in your portfolio. Oh, you said the T was silent on this. Was that correct? Nuo. I think you said it was the T was silent. Okay. Oh yeah. All right. We had multiple variations last time, and then they chose one, combined some of the elements together, and now we've got this. Okay. I was like, man, I kind of remember this, but all right, that's what it was. All right, so on this one, I believe it was Nuho was how he pronounced it. They made the right choice here in that they obviously had limited time. I don't think that they considered this finish. I don't consider this finish. But they didn't go too far, right? They did what they could well, cleanly, understandably, with the time that they had to work with. So it's not colored. I'm not going to talk about the colors. Let's just talk about it where it is going forwards, about the design and the execution up to this point. Yeah. Nick says, get as nitpicky as you like. Don't mind. Thanks. Well, you're welcome. Love seeing your piece, man. Hope you will continue on with the next challenge. Okay, what am I seeing here? All right. Overall, we're talking about the just general impressions of the character. Then it's good. I think you're on a good track. It ticks all the boxes for me about the impression that this character is supposed to be giving off. It's consistent use of shapes and values throughout it. So now what we want to do is, I think we need to find slightly better overall shapes. The interior shapes, like using the triple lines multiple times, using the dangly things like here and over here, and the triple lines down there. That sort of reusing of shapes and design elements is good. The body feels off to me a bit, and I'm going to say, before progressing very much further, let's revisit the pose, because right now we have, let me grab some color that's going to show up. There we go. We got shoulders, right, torso, chest, got the head here, but the head feels too small. I think the face feels too small. Okay, so this couple, okay, all right, this is making more sense now that I'm looking at it. The face is too squashed, and this is the center line of the hair, but that's the center line of the face, and they don't match up. The center line of the hair doesn't match up with the actual center line of the head, and that needs to be consistent. Like, that needs to go over there and follow the roundness of the head. And I get the idea that you're trying to make her have her head down, but all you've done is pushed all the features down, but not actually changed the angles of the features. So we're still seeing the nose from the side, all right? Instead of being able to see it looking down. If she's looking down, the nose ought to be going back up, right? I'm oversimplifying this into just a curve instead of a volume. But that, same thing with the mouth. The mouth has to follow the curvature of the face. So the mouth would be curving down, right? This is going to, overall the head is going to be turning, right? I don't think you need to have it facing down that much. Also, if it's facing down that much, it needs to be here. So if you want this as the solution and keep most of it where it is, then when you look down, you can't look down without dropping your chin. And that means that the chin needs to be much closer to the collar. Face towards the mic would probably be helpful. So that means that the collar is about here. The chin needs to be nearly to the collar. And that allows you the space to lengthen the features back out so that the mouth can be here. The nose can, lengthen back out. And you can have a proper chin on it. And then adjust that, center line of the hair over. That would help fix a lot of what's going on with the head. Okay. I'm gonna. Now I'm. This could easily be taken the wrong way, so I'm gonna just put it up as something to be aware of. Usually, this type of character, games, companies, clients will want them to be on the sexy side. All right, if you're going to be showing shoulders, torsos, attractive face, you're probably going to want the torso to here. All right, hourglass figure. and just giving her this super slim waist. What you have is probably more anatomically correct, but you know, that's not games. Because no, it's like the movies, right? It's fantasy, it's make believe, and generally pushing it towards the more ideal is what people want. So yeah, just to be aware of that. Something else is this hand feels a bit little. So the rule of thumb is the distance from the base of your palm to the tip of your finger is the same as from your chin to your hairline. And that means that the hand needs to be at least that long. And this is tilted, so that needs to be extended a bit more. And because of the female, you generally give her slightly longer, elegant fingers. So I'm going to suggest giving her fingers more on that line. All right? A little slimmer, a little longer. Yeah. Now, what I said about being more idealized with the body, that might be something that you need to check with your art director. I've had to do that a couple of times before and just ask them, all right, is this a really attractive character? Is this a very normal, everyday kind of person? And I've had responses both ways. So for this sort of character, it's probably going to be towards the ideal side. So just be aware of that. Next up, the legs. The legs still feel a little odd. You got the general idea, and I like the pose that's going on, but the anatomy feels a bit off. Got that. You got this. Then that essentially goes backwards, right? And then you should have, you know, a shin bone sort of thing coming down here. It's not the shin, it's the foot that's elongated, but okay, I'm going to call it a shin. You got that here. You got to have a muscle here. So you got a roundish shape back up here. Then this will often slim down here as it comes down here. And then you have a joint, and you have a round joint there. Then it slims again. You might look at like anatomy for a horse. If you can't find any good poses, like anatomy stuff for animals. Then you have your hoof here. Now you have, you know, hair going along it, but then it sort of sets out in a wedge. The hair coming around there. And these sorts of concave, convex curves following the anatomy of what's going on, that can really help tell you what to do. Because right now I feel like you're just sort of straight line, blobby thing, right? And I don't think you're quite understanding the form going on. So as you develop it, make sure that you're looking into that. This also feels a bit odd. Like this arm is straight, which is kind of unusual. So I'd like to see just a little bend in that arm to be a bit more natural. Or that it's coming here, then like the hand is holding up there. But if it is holding over here, then you might have that handle moved over a bit, or move the whole staff over a little bit so that she's not having to reach straight out for it. Get just a little more natural bend to things. Yeah, cool. This actually, you might want to think about joining the next challenge. We got some shapes kind of like this going on in it. You got the little skull on the buzzard. I like that. I feel like the skull probably needs to be a little bit bigger. Yeah, I mean, let's take that up 10 or 20%. Yeah. Okay, cool. And I'm going to suggest here that we kind of do the inverse. Let's keep the triple line going. I love the triple line, but have it white. Have white triple lines like going on the buzzard, you know, that sort of thing. So it ties them together, but they've got inverted color palettes. You got the hair here. Running down. Alright, so you got a Rapunzel thing going on here, which is good, bad. I like the long hair looks good. It makes for a nice shape. But this is maybe a bit too much. Like, that's not functional. Like, in any walk of life, that's not functional unless you live in a Disney movie. This could work if it's tied up, it's got some sort of tie at the bottom of it, and then there's like a thing on the staff, and then it's hooked to the staff, so like the bottom of the staff holds up the bottom of the hair, or the hair is naturally going to be breaking off where it drags on the ground. It's just gonna dirty up and tear off and that sort of thing. So you can end it there. And maybe there's a couple of strands that are longer, but yeah, I'm going to suggest that, and it's not just a pile on the floor. If you're going to go with that long hair, I would say embrace that, and let this be long too, right? Let this hair fall across the character, and just go down there and join the rest of it, right? And that becomes a real design thing. Nice big piece going across one of the eyes. I think is a good call. This looks. The thing is, there's a disparity between this hair looks like it was done in a salon. Lots of form and body and wave and perfectly framing the face. And this is like something completely different. No form, no shape, and it's 10 feet long. So I think this is more interesting for the character, more consistent with the character. So let's give a bit more of that. Let it just hang down kind of over the face. Maybe she's got a tie on it. Like if you want it held back, then all you have to do is have like a little string around part of this, hooked to like a little metal piece that she puts her hair through, so that her hair is kind of held back out of her face, right? Yeah. There you go. So, lots of ideas. Excellent direction. Looking forward to see what you do with it. Michael says, any advice for increasing rendering speed? I ran out of time before I could lighten the folds in the clothing on mine like you demonstrated. Michael. Okay. Rendering speed. Yes and no. The best way to improve in speed is just practice, right? Working with workflows, knowing workflows, trusting workflows is a good way to increase speed because it removes a lot of the trial and error. What I mean by that is like this. This is a workflow. Start with lines, redraw the lines, establish basic shadows, basic values, start putting in colors, blend the colors and the values together for the final. That's a workflow. Step by step by step, boom, we're at the end. And that can speed things up a lot because you're only biting off one thing at a time, focusing on that one thing, and everything is given its own little place in the queue. And you are less likely to drop a ball along the way and have to fix errors and mistakes if you are only focusing on one thing. However, if you go in there and you're trying to do the values and the colors and design and the composition and everything all at the same time, you're likely going to fail on half of them. And then as you go, you're going to be trying to fix multiple things at the same time. So that would be part of it. So learn a couple of different workflows. Like I said, showed on the other ones, panels, processes. Go out and look on Pinterest for like painting processes, workflows, works in progress, that sort of thing, and get some ideas and know a couple of different ones. I know several different ones to use that I use in my own artwork. And depending on the piece, I pick the one that's going to give me the best results the fastest. Yeah, so that is a good one. What is another way? Keep out of doing details too fast. That is something you just have to learn how to do. It's a self-control thing. So learning that details do not make an image, that the fundamentals make an image, and details is not a fundamental. So eking out the most you can from the pose, the values, and the lighting, shading, before you get into doing every single fold. All right. Other ways to improve. Let's see. Speed. I think that's it for now. You know what? I want to make a note right here to do an episode. Maybe we'll do a live stream or just a video on speed, increasing speed. The other thing, like with this challenge, is you don't have to finish it. I've already mentioned that once, but you don't have to get the whole thing done. Even if you just get part of it done, just make sure that part's done well. All right, last line. Let's take a look at these. Rafa Matthias. Okay, Calypso, the Wonder. This is Fred. Okay, so her animal companion is an eyeball. Cool. I think that's pushing the bounds of an animal companion. Depending on the art director, they might call you on that. I like the style. I think you are embracing your sort of shape language style, and that's good. Got good stuff going on with that. This is another one where the pose doesn't really work because the legs are so off-centered from the actual weight of the character. So get that bottom half, like from here, and we need to shift that back underneath her. Otherwise, she's about to fall forwards. Yep. Okay, looks like maybe the hair is unfinished. There's absolutely no lines or shade or detail or anything on that. I will assume that you just did not finish doing that. Very soft light on this. Now this is nice. The layers of detail here and visual information. And this is kind of what I mentioned earlier, which is they've used lines to indicate the outside of a lot of things, but the inside uses less deep lines, less deep shadows. And then like the white paint on her is at maybe half opacity, which is really great because it allows it to kind of blend into the skin and without it to just breaking up all the value scheme. So it's there, but it's not obtrusive, and that's a good call. So going forwards, what were some adjustments that could be made? Let me grab my pen back. All right, the pose, I mentioned that. The hair needs something done with it, so it's just consistent with the rest of it as far as rendering style, and we know his hair and everything. I need to see how this is actually connecting to this. That feels odd. All right, allow it, if it has a hole cut in it, then it goes in and then maybe we see the top of it come out. Otherwise it needs to come up the other side and there needs to be like an X latch so that we see how that's strapped on there. Yep. Okay, what else? This shape is sort of bothering me. This is this isn't a good, this is a tangent here. It isn't a good interplay of lines. That this bladed shape, is that what it is? Comes down here, right behind the hand, which isn't ideal. Meets up with the fingers on that side, and then it meets up with this line, and then it meets right up with that leg. So, I mean, I'm thinking about just taking that whole thing out, because that's not helping anybody on that whole side. Because offhand, I thought she was holding something, but like her fingers aren't wrapped around anything. So this is something that's strapped on behind her. Yeah, I'm gonna just say it's probably better just take that out. And that brings up a good point, which is just because something looked good in one view of your character design doesn't mean it's going to look good in every view. And there's certainly been some times that I thought I designed a pretty cool character, and then I went to actually illustrate that character in the pose they needed to be in for the image, and it didn't work. It just didn't work. It did not make good shapes. It made crazy, weird ways that it would have to fold, and you didn't get to see the cool parts, and sometimes you just waste all that effort designing all these cool things. So, yeah, be willing to adapt it to whatever the actual final pose and illustration is. Okay, anything else? I'd like to see a little more attention on some of these horns. Maybe taking cues from what we saw on the other ones, which is giving a bit of twist to them, give some little ribbing to them, just to keep them from being the perfect tubular horn. Yep. All right, I'm going to stop it there. I'm pretty happy with that. You might want to punch up the colors just a bit more, values just a bit more. You don't have to go overboard with it, but it feels just slightly washed out, like another 10 or 15%. Ronaldo. All right, pull this up. Okay, a lot going on here. Okay. This is one. The first impression is the design is excellent. The overall idea of the character is working on multiple levels. The consistency of colors and design choices are excellent. Some of the major drawbacks is the orthogonal views. So, like, the bird is straight on. The legs are straight down. The wings are straight out. She is straight on to us. The staff is straight on to us. It is just, it's too much. It's too much straight on. We want to have her straight on. Okay, cool. But not everything else. Let's find a way that the bird can actually be going around. We've already got this nice curve here. Let's have the bird actually fly in that direction. Make Mr. Owl fly that way. He doesn't have to be looking at us. And then this staff. Let's turn the staff. Instead of being like this, it's like this. Right? We want to give depth. We've got no depth in this image. This whole thing feels like it's about 3 inches thick because everything is completely flat to us. So let's turn the staff. We will get this, put it on layer, cut it, paste it, angle it, and then you have to rework the volume, right? Okay. Now, what else? I like the jewelry. I like this stuff. The feathers aren't really I guess these are feathers on the legs, but those aren't really working. It looks like something else. More like bark, maybe? You might need to take some creative license as far as feathers. Make them more like this, more like that. I think you were going with the small feather legs that are real fluffy and little that you see on a bird, but that patterning isn't working. From a distance, it's more rock-like, just the light and dark kind of crinkly pattern. So yeah. Okay, the blue accents I sort of like. Yeah. The gold is good. This back foot looks like it's actually out underneath the other foot. And we've got no volume here. I can't tell, this whole thing is flat. I don't feel like it's coming down, coming out, going down, you know, that sort of thing. So we need to shade things that are going away from us, lighter things that are coming towards us, so at least there's a little depth to it. You can have that other leg behind here, but let's put, these toes can't be closer to us than that heel. So those toes need to be pushed back to here. And then the foot is like, it's walking, right? So the toes are down, but the foot is arching up. Yeah, just like a regular human foot, but you're just changing the toes and forefoot to the claws. So yeah, okay. I think that would help a lot. But overall, yeah, it's good execution. A lot of good character in that. You know, let me open it up. I just want to zoom in on that so everybody online can get a little better view of it. It's good execution. Look at that. Good features. Nice shapes going on there. The metal is nice. I like the rendition on that. The white paint. Maybe edge that white paint out just a little bit. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Riccardo. Now, Riccardo, I used the little head section of this in the thumbnail for the video. If you're not, if that's not acceptable to you, let me know. Otherwise, I'll leave it in there. Okay, so Riccardo, this is good. You went with the albino snake. I made her albino-esque also. The really light pink sort of non-pigmented skin. So you get the really light pink tone just because of the blood underneath. The skin itself has no... I forgot what it is in skin that gives the color. I had the word a second ago. Anyway, the thing in skin. Melatonin. That gives skin its color. Let's see. The double horns is nice. I love the shapes you're coming up with here. This is really well handled. It's really well handled. That's nice execution, man. I feel like you probably did not finish this. Definitely some areas that you didn't get to give another pass to. You put it in the most important area, which is right around the face, shoulders. So I will assume that you're going to go back, rework the metal, the gold, and do some stuff on the staff and some of the bottom stuff. Beyond that, what else? I think that you're sort of missing an opportunity to have the snake and the character interact a little bit more. The figure 8 design is sort of odd for the snake. Like, I'd love to see, like, maybe the snake coming around here and then going between the legs. And it would just give a bit more overlapping, interweaving of the character in the snake. And that's one of the... it's one of the actually big opportunities you get from doing something with a snake in it. Because they can wrap around anything. And so, yeah, let's not miss that opportunity. Let it wrap around somewhere. Maybe around this side between the legs there. Maybe it comes up and wraps around the pole here. You know, that sort of thing. It would be helpful. That's good. Okay, what else? Oh, yeah, we went with like the human leg, but in the form of an animal leg. I go along with that. Okay. Okay, this is good design. I like these shapes. Well, I think that's it for now. Yeah, some of the stuff I'm not sure what you're going to go with it. Like obviously that needs to be detailed a bit more. I also think maybe this leg could come towards us slightly more. Like the lower body, the legs are just a little more spread out, and the knees aren't quite so turned. Because I feel like this is more straight to us, then it bends sideways here. So I'm going to suggest moving the knee back over this way about to there, so it matches up with the angle that we get on the bottom part of the leg. Yeah, something about that felt odd, and that's what it is. Santiago. Santiago says, hey Clint, unfortunately my workflow is not the best. So in the end, I ran out of time to properly paint the animal companion and decided to just submit what I had with Calypso. That's fine. Focus on Calypso. You can always do the animal later. Thank you for helping us with your time. Best of luck with the Patron. Thank you, thank you. Calypso the Wanderer. This is turning into one of our longest streams. On the front end, good. I like it. It's a very distinct look. And I want to pull that up so I can actually zoom in here. Like they said, they didn't get to the animal. I think they also didn't get to do some of the detail pass on some of this. So I will forego mentioning, too much on that. Excellent. God, the expression on that hand, very nice. That's a very good use of a hand, holding a staff, but not just holding the staff, but actually giving some character, personality through it as well. So I like that. The more animal features, the slight change of the lip. Not something I see very much, but that works well. The animal ears, the horizontal pupils in the eye is a small change, but it's an excellent choice. Okay, going down the big brass mantle. It's well done. I like this, a very artisan sort of shape. Okay, now this, I think it's going the right direction, but probably not the right execution. All the dots on the drape thing. Dotted patterns like that are eye magnets, and we don't need that much attention on those. So having a pattern, yes, but that's probably not the best pattern. We can go with circles, but consider doing something like a big circle, 3 little circles, a big circle, 3 little circles, or a circle overlapping in half of another circle, and then start that pattern again, so that we have fewer larger shapes instead of a bunch of little shapes. Or if you want to keep with that, then let's tone them down half, so that they're even lighter, right? They're half that darkness, so that they don't stand out quite so much. Okay, staff. I like the staff. Man, you got the little magics off of it a little bit. The red paint on there is cool. I'm not sure. Is this her white hair? I'm a little I'm not sure about that. I almost want to see some hair strands floating off of it, just to make it really sure that that is hair that she just has folded. Assuming that you're getting detail on this stuff. Yeah, the dots, you got to do something about the dots. They just don't mesh in enough. I know that you've got dots on some of the rest of it, but it's very, very eye magnet. And I'll also be curious to see something from this on the staff. Some gold bands on the staff. Some of that red design up on it somewhere. I don't know, maybe that looks like a candy cane. Yeah, yeah. I probably think some of that goldy, brassy thing on there somewhere. Or maybe just the section where the handle should be, where they hold the most, might have that. Okay, a couple of things. Excellent piece. I look forward to seeing what you do with it. Shyla. Okay. This feels more like a rogue assassin shaman. It's like a hit assassin. Maybe a bit too far, but let's go with it. Let's go with it. Okay, so a couple of things that I'm seeing. A tangent that's really bothering me is that the staff is ending exactly at the end of that leg. That's not the biggest issue in the image, but it's something I've got to mention. Okay. The leg transition is pretty good. Let's get that hoof maybe a little bit bigger. That's really small area for somebody to balance on. So let's get that bottom joint and that hoof maybe 50% bigger. You got to figure out what your execution on this is going to be, because if you want to just leave it as a concept and this is how you're going to render it, hey, that's completely up to you. But as a final image, it really needs to have a distinct color scheme, value scheme, and lighting. And it doesn't really have that. It kind of has a color scheme with the green-brown thing, but it doesn't have a lighting established. It doesn't have forms established. This is also another case where we probably don't need this thing in an orthogonal view, with the head straight at us. Like the body's completely sideways, and then the head is completely sideways. Like, pose, we're going to take a picture, and he's like, I think it would serve better if it had more of a 3/4 view to its head. Obviously, that's a lot of work, but hey, you came from me for feedback, and that's what I'm saying. This is sort of interesting. A saber-toothed mouth with some sort of big magical ball in it. I'd be interested to see a magic effect in there. Some bubbles. Something. That would be a good place for something. Okay, what else? Yeah, figure out what your style is going to be. Go out there and look at some things like Dungeons and Dragons illustrations. Go out on ArtStation. Figure out like something like that. I mean, I think that could work with yours. It's not hyper realistic. It just uses a lot of good shapes. And the lighting isn't crazy. It just uses a basic sort of lighting to it. So get something like that to use as a direction for how you're going to execute your image. And that would really help you take it to a next level so that it's not just a concept, it's not a sketch, it's actual finished illustration that would, look presentable in any kind of, D&D book, that sort of thing. Okay, next up, the last one is Zoe. Remember, we got to take a look at the next challenge. We'll go over that before we wrap up the stream. So, there we go. Zoe. Forgive me, I only had Thursday night to work on it. This is Shyla from the last image, and also she'll be able to take off her hood. Okay. Calypso, the Wanderer. Okay, another piece that's, I think the values kind of got away from them just a little bit too dark, but a quick value level adjustment would bring that back. Actually, let me do that in Photoshop so that we're not going to be losing out on any of the details. Now, so here, like, I know that I can brighten it all the way up to that white line, and I'm not going to lose any detail. And then next, I can probably drop this to that next valley. I'm going to move this up. And then we just get some of those midtones back in. All that detail they put in won't be lost. Okay, now... Alright, the creature. Cool, man. Or ma'am, I guess, Zoe. That's a cool creature. It's an anteater skunk thing that's giant. Yeah, I'm on board with that. So you've got the connection between the bands on the legs, and that's cool, and the little line, the little thready ones over there with the jewel over there too. So it's a good cross between the designs on them. The big horns. I sort of like the big horns, and you went from the green transitioning into the warmer tones there. I feel like the face, though. The face is a little scrunched. So we have very little room between the eyes here, but a lot of room over there. So what if we grab... Just stretch that eye out a little bit. Just, yeah. You can see that difference there? And that feels like a more acceptable anatomy to the face. And we probably don't need to play up the nostril. And we don't need to play up the shadowed part of the nostril. Like if you want to brighten it a little bit, maybe put a little light on the top of the nostril, right? And just keep that little shadow on the nasal fold, so that we've got indication of age. Small adjustment there, but I think that should help out. This is another one of those times where I will mention the ideal, where it's probably realistic, but we also have a very, there's not much, shape going on there. It's very straight all the way down. So I'm gonna say she also might be just a little, might just be a little wide there. Now that side will be straighter than the other side because it's the side that's actually stretching the furthest. This side will have more pinch on it because it's having to take up less distance because that shoulder is lower. Just a little bit to get that form back. This is another place that it's generally don't want the arm straight like that. Just putting a little bend in the arm is often a good idea. So if we copy and paste that, and then what we can do is just grab the anchor point, move it up to the elbow, and then adjust it, like this. And obviously you would have to paint that one out. And then it makes sense because otherwise if there's no bend, it just feels like the arm is too short. But if you put the bend in, then we kind of accept the foreshortening a bit more. All right. Okay, this is one of those times where this is coming towards us, the thigh, and so we can curve it this way. But this one's going away from us, so we kind of need to curve it the other way, or at least a neutral curve. So let's copy and paste that. Run that through a warp to reduce the curve on that. I think I have snap turned on. Yeah, that's my snap. It's trying to snap to guidelines. Now it feels like that leg's actually going away from us more. Otherwise, it feels like it too is also coming towards us. But there we go. So mainly minor execution changes on this. The character overall works for me. The lighting is pretty nice. The execution on this guy is good. And what we might think is just bringing up some of this, not letting it get too dark. Because you let all of this get that dark, and we're just losing all of the differences between the items. And that doesn't mean you have to put detail in all of this, but it does mean that we still should be able to tell the difference between each section or each object in the area based on its base color. It's like I didn't even realize that all this stuff was here until I started going in there. And then you can use your darker shadows in the areas where you have the occlusion. And just bring some of that back out. You could also consider adding, oh, you have a little cool light over there. That's not actually bad. I would say even run with that a bit more so that you have a bit of cool light on this side of the face. And it can be shadowed right up there to that edge. Right, and then it has cooler light on that side. Also needs to affect that a little bit too. And you have kind of that cool light there. I just feel like you weren't pushing that quite enough. This is also a good place just to form out some of the abs a little bit. That cool light. Small stuff, but yeah, just one little extra push, a bit more. Okay, so that is, okay, don't save. That is the review. That's all, shoot, 3.5 hours. Okay, so let's go over the next challenge and answer any questions you have. If you have questions about Patreon, about this channel, about challenge, now is a great time. Put them in the chat, let me know. Going forward, as I said, they will be for patrons, $10 and up. I adjusted how things are going to process on Patreon. I had the option to run payments yesterday, but what I'm going to do instead is, if you become a patron between now and December, you'll actually be charged on December 1st. So you'll receive this stuff first, and then you'll actually be charged. You'll have to still put in your information, and it will log your information. So if you want to join the challenge and you have not yet become a patron, you can still do that. I was kind of thinking about it as like, I gave everybody like 2 days to become a patron, which really isn't enough time to spread the word and everybody check and, you know, to see if they wanted to or not. So I'm adjusting it. If you do want to get in the challenge, you can still go out there, become a patron. I'm going to check to see if you're an active patron, if you're pledged. And if so, then I will get you the information. I will go ahead and show you what the challenge is. You can decide whether you want to join or not. And essentially, I will only give the Dropbox folder upload link to patrons. Everyone else can figure out, and they can see what the challenge will be about, but only the patrons will get the Dropbox folder upload, thus being able to be the only ones that get feedback. Okay, so Spireville continues. This time, you're doing Vathut. This is a creature illustration, not a concept, but a full illustration. This would be for a character card, like you might have for Magic the Gathering. It's the same size proportions, 3000 by 2200 pixels. And Vathut is a carrion drake. A drake is like a dragon, but it has 2 wings and 2 back legs, no front legs. The reason for Calypso's appearance is made known with the announcement that Vathut, the carrion drake, is coming. The opening of the royal tombs of the Saurian crypts has drawn the creature like a shark to blood. With a body the size of a bison and wingspan to match, Vathut is a combination of a vulture and a dragon. Its body is agile but strong, having 2 wings and 2 legs as a standard drake. Vathut has dark wings, scales, and a heavy hide. It is a carrion creature, that is, it eats dead creatures. And the tombs are full of dead bodies, which of course Dagon and Daphne opened up. Because Calypso has a connection to nature and kind of magical stuff, she was alerted to the presence of Vathut. So that's what's going on. Vathut has, distinguishing features. It is reminiscent of a vulture with a red face. It has feathers and scales, a combination of both. It is a mythological, fantasy, fable sort of creature, undetermined gender. And depict Vathut on the ground in a threatening pose, kind of like what you see here. It's landed, now it's approaching, or it's yelling, or whatever it's doing. The background should be a foggy and unobtrusive depiction of the Saurian crypts. Along with this is a little PDF. Spireville, Vathut, Carrion Drake. These are good depictions of poses. Alright, now this one's a straight dragon because it has an extra front legs, as is that one. Don't mind that. These are good pose examples. This one's also a good example showing how to do a really foggy scene so that the character stands out well. And you have an idea of where you are, but you're not having to do a lot of busy background. Next up, Vathut is a combination of buzzard, classic dragon. So this is kind of an interesting piece, just in general, buzzard vulture images. So some sort of red patterning on the face. Most of the body is dark, black, brown, blues, that sort of thing. It is a creature that is pretty ugly, but it's not undead. It's not an undead creature. So make sure that it doesn't have like hollow rib cages and stuff. It's just got dirt and grime and crusted stuff on it, missing feathers, that sort of thing. So here's some illustrations. The scene takes place in the Saurian crypts. These are concepts created by the Swatches community in a previous art contest. However, your image will have heavy fog and most of the background will be obscured. See the facing page. So these are from different guys, as you see the names down here, different depictions of what the Saurian crypts looks like. So something along those lines for the general area. These are good examples of what is needed for the background or the environment. Keep the distant area out of focus and foggy while some of the foreground area can be seen clearer. Like you see here, you can see some marshy stuff and some rocks, and then it quickly fades into just silhouettes and mist. Same sort of thing here, some broken trees, some rocks, mist. Down here we got some wet mud, pools of water, and then it goes out into some rainy clouds, that sort of thing. So that would be along with the directions over on this one. Those will be made available to the patrons, and I'll probably get those out to you tomorrow. All right, so any questions on this going forwards? Well, I'm not seeing any comments, so I will assume that everybody has all the answers that they need. Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining, and I appreciate it. If you have questions, comments, or if you're not involved in the Swatches community, please go out to swatches.group, which is the Facebook group. It's a great place to post questions. Also get feedback on your work from the community. I too try to, as I have time. Yep. I have to join this next challenge. I had a blast with the last character due to kind of my characters, but I love the creatures. Megan, hey, thanks. I'm glad you'll be joining us. What is the timing? The timing is the same thing as we normally have. It is a 2-week challenge. So we should have a quick review next week. Also be trying to combine the midweek challenge will be just it's a brief review. And then I'd like to also do like some paint overs, that sort of thing. Be a little bit more of showcasing some other things and not just reviews, where the final review will be much more dedicated to just reviewing. Yep. So essentially for the $10 you get, of course, the patron, and you get the normal stuff, which is the next chapter. The Understanding Mood will be coming out on composition, and you would be covering most of the time 2 art challenges, because 2 weeks, 4 weeks in a month. We will probably lose a challenge or shift a challenge by a week around the holidays somewhere. Again, I'll have to let you know when I know, because moving is very possible in my future. I'm just trying to line up where I'm actually going to be moving to. So yeah, I need to make sure I have a room when I get back. All right, thank you everybody. I will catch you later. And until you see you next time, keep drawing.